Total darkness. He's completely lost, wondering why everything suddenly went black while he was in the middle of a good time. He thinks he might have just missed his electricity bill, but then he feels a strange pressure over his eyes. His vision slowly returns, blurry at first as he tries to make sense of the ceiling above him. He holds his hand up and freezes. Instead of fingers, he's looking at a stubby, white limb that looks like it belongs in a salad. Panicked, he reaches up and feels a massive, leathery surface where his hair should be. He's a mushroom, a short, stout monster with human eyes stuck in a damp, rocky dungeon. He looks down at a puddle and sees the horrifying truth reflected back at him. He crosses his arms and sighs, trying to remember exactly how he died. The memories start flooding back, and they aren't exactly heroic. He realizes the humiliating truth. He actually passed away from overexertion during a solitary celebration, which is about as embarrassing as it gets. King Oyster wails at the ceiling, mourning his handsome face and his now impossible quest to pick up girls. Out of nowhere, a high-pitched voice calls him King Oyster Bro, snapping him out of his breakdown. He peers over a ledge, seeing the silhouette of another mushroom watching him from the shadows. His eyes go wide, his imagination already running wild. He pictures a stunning woman in a sexy dress, convinced that this is the beautiful babe of the dungeon. He turns into a total simp, hearts practically popping out of his eyes as he drools over the thought. He gets himself ready, pumping his fists and preparing to make his big move. Then he actually sees the person he's been talking to. It's just a pink mushroom girl with glowing yellow eyes, looking at him like he's a total creep. He stands there in a cold sweat, realizing he's just a mushroom among mushrooms. He tries to salvage his dignity by asking what they usually do for fun around here. She gives him a flat, robotic response about slaughtering intruders, which doesn't exactly scream fun. He just stares at her, wondering if everyone in this place is a mindless drone. Suddenly, the cave lights up with a violent red glow as the intruders actually arrive. A massive, muscular foot slams onto the ground, cracking the stone beneath it. A hulking orc named Kabu steps forward, red eyes glowing and steam venting from his mouth. His partner, an archer named Rabu, follows behind, worried that they might need a healer for this run. Kabu just scoffs, telling her that the monsters in this dungeon are just brain-dead NPCs on a fixed pattern. Right on cue, a tiny mushroom monster charges in blindly, screaming the exact line the pink girl just mentioned. Kabu swings his heavy axe in a wide arc, cleaving the poor mushroom in half with ease. He turns back to Rabu with a smug grin, proving that they have nothing to worry about. A whole swarm of mushrooms rushes in to take its place, all repeating the same mindless dialogue. It's a complete slaughter. Kabu is just speedrunning the dungeon, leaving a trail of purple blood in his wake. King Oyster and the pink mushroom girl watch the carnage from the shadows of a nearby tunnel. He watches in disbelief, frustrated that his kind are just lining up to be turned into XP. The girl explains that they're just NPCs. Everything they do is pre-programmed, and they don't have freedom. King Oyster realizes the truth. These orcs are players, and he's just a target. A sharp thwack rings out as an arrow buries itself in the wood right next to him. He looks down, his heart sinking as he realizes they've been spotted. The female orc archer stands below, her hand already drawing the next arrow and locking onto him. King Oyster instantly snaps into action, bolting away while screaming at the pink mushroom girl to run. He bolts into the darkness, his survival instincts finally overriding the game's code. King Oyster bolts into the darkness, his survival instincts finally overriding the game's code. He looks back at his companion, who is still frozen in place. Utterly confused by what's happening, he rushes back and screams at her to move, his voice thick with desperation as the orcs close in. But the pink mushroom girl is stuck, her tiny yellow eyes wide as she tells him that fleeing simply isn't part of their programming. King Oyster refuses to leave her behind, reaching back and shouting for her to grab his hand. The moment their hands meet, the air around them begins to crackle and glitch with purple energy. Bright red system alerts flood the air, screaming about a major data anomaly that shouldn't be happening. King Oyster doesn't care about the rules. He shouts that they should screw the programming and the anomalies. The girl calls out his name in shock, as the reality of the dungeon seems to fracture around them. He hauls her forward, shouting that staying alive is more important than any stupid code. Up on the ridge, the orc players watch the two mushrooms sprint away, completely baffled by their behavior. Kabu assumes it's just a weird game bug, but he's not about to let his easy XP slip through his fingers. The two mushrooms dive into a pile of rubble, King Oyster frantically looking for any kind of weapon to defend them. His eyes dart across the cave, scanning for anything that might give them an edge against the players. He spots a heavy wooden treasure chest tucked into a corner and skids to a halt. He hopes there's something useful inside, but the pink girl warns him that the chests are locked for NPCs. She explains that those items are meant only for the players, and their kind can't even touch the latches. King Oyster doesn't listen, his hand glitching with power as he defies the game's core logic once again. Instead of a key, he just smashes the lock with a heavy stone, causing the system to scream with more warnings. The girl is stunned into silence. The King Oyster she knew would never have been able to break the rules like this. He dives into the chest, frantically tossing aside gold coins and potions to find something sharp. But before he can arm himself, another arrow whistles through the air with lethal speed. The pink girl's body moves on its own, her mind telling her that saving a teammate isn't in her code. Despite the rules, she throws herself in front of King Oyster, refusing to let him get hurt. A spray of purple blood flies into the air, and King Oyster's eye reflects the sudden, brutal violence. The arrow catches her square in the back, sending her collapsing to the dusty floor as her strength fades. Up on the cliff, Rabu is already drawing her next shot, determined to end this bugged monster once and for all. King Oyster's fingers finally close around a heavy kitchen cleaver he found at the bottom of the chest. With a roar, he swings the blade, sparks flying as he deflects the incoming arrow in midair. Rabu stares down from the ledge, her jaw dropped in absolute disbelief at what she just saw. She can't wrap her head around how a bottom-tier, trash mob just parried a high-level player's attack. The shattered arrow lies useless on the ground, a physical piece of evidence that the game is broken. She looks at the smashed treasure chest, realizing this monster is doing things no NPC should ever be able to do. Cold sweat rolls down her face as she calls out to her partner that they've found a massive bug. Far away from the combat, a purple rift opens as Kabu discusses the situation with a shadowy advisor. He's frustrated that after all this time, the dungeon is still full of glitches and anomalies. A mysterious, cloaked figure tells him that with the system running this long, maintenance oversights are inevitable. A giant, flaming skull appears, the Grand Lick, explaining that this entire world was built just to keep their warriors busy. He designed the dungeon as a playground where his soldiers could play as players to kill time between wars. The system is supposed to be perfect. Monsters are farmed and bugs are reported to the admins for fixing. Back in King Oyster's dungeon, Rabu doesn't want to sit around waiting for a patch. She pulls her bowstring taut, determined to fix this game bug herself. Another arrow streaks through the air, aimed directly at the mushroom monster's head. Already in motion, King Oyster readies his blade to swing, prepared to deflect anything that comes flying his way. King Oyster swings the kitchen cleaver with incredible agility, slicing through the air as he cuts down every single arrow. He's impressed by the fluid movements of his new mushroom body, realizing his base stats are actually quite high. 3 arrows whistle toward him in a tight cluster, aimed to pin him down. With rapid strikes of the cleaver, he bats the arrows aside, sparks flying from the steel blade. Glancing back at the thick chest lid behind him, he calculates his next move, knowing full well that his stubby legs put him at a serious disadvantage when trying to close the distance. To close the distance on that female orc, he needs something to block all of her incoming ranged attacks. With a decisive slash at the chest behind him, he hacks the lid clean off the wooden box. As he turns his head, his gaze locks dead onto Rabu while a barrage of arrows streaks straight toward his head. In one swift, decisive motion, he raises the chest lid to block the entire volley of arrows from the female orc. Rabu frantically draws back another arrow, her red eyes wide with disbelief as the monster refuses to die. Using the lid as a battering ram, he charges straight up the cliff face while taking a hail of fire. He crashes into Rabu's position with the force of a falling boulder, the impact kicking up a cloud of dust. King Oyster leaps into the air from the edge of the ridge, casting aside the heavy shield to go for the kill. A blinding blue flash of energy cuts through the air as the cleaver finds its mark. Purple blood sprays across the rocky ground, signaling a critical hit against the player. Rabu collapses onto the cracked earth, her life force draining away while King Oyster stands over his first kill. Taking down a player triggers a shimmering, massive system notification screen, congratulating the little mushroom on securing first blood and unlocking his unique, game-changing racial talents. He's just obtained powers like mycelial network and plant mushroom, which let him link with minions and harvest skills from corpses. There's even a new toggle that lets him switch between his mushroom body and a more human-like reconstructed form. He stares at the glowing text in shock, realizing he's just been granted a game system of his own. Without hesitation, he activates the plant mushroom skill to see what this new power can do. He steps onto Rabu's cooling corpse, his mushroom feet sinking into the orc's flesh. Eerie pink tendrils erupt from the ground, burrowing into the body to drain its remaining nutrients. King Oyster shudders as a wave of intoxicating energy rushes through him, making him feel more powerful than ever. He turns his head, his dark eyes searching for the fallen pink mushroom girl in the rubble below. She lies motionless in the dirt, the arrow still protruding from her back where she shielded him. He walks over to her side, whispering that since she took an arrow for him, it's now his turn to save her. Reaching out a glowing hand, he activates plant mushroom once more, surrounding her in a halo of red light. A blinding flare of energy erupts from her body, illuminating the dark cave in a crimson hue. Mycelial tendrils weave around her form, reconstructing her into something entirely new. A tall, slender humanoid figure begins to take shape within the swirling magical energy. The red light pulses with power as a woman's silhouette emerges from the core of the transformation. King Oyster watches in awe, his small body silhouetted against the brilliant radiance. He's so overwhelmed that a massive anime-style nosebleed erupts, his heart-shaped pupils completely glued to the glorious result in front of him. The light fades to reveal a beautiful woman with dark bun hair, a red streak and long pointed ears, clad in a red and black dress. A new status window appears, detailing the stats for a level 2 mushroom archer. This guard class focuses on agility and features a unique mushroom mycelium talent that allows for healing and skill absorption from fallen enemies. It even shows a newly acquired Orc Berserk skill, granting a significant damage boost for a short burst in combat. She sinks to one knee before her master, asking the chief to grant her a proper name. A floating prompt appears before King Oyster, tasking him with naming his first mushroom subordinate. He crosses his arms and ponders for a moment, wanting to find a name that fits her elegant new form. His eye widens as he comes to a decision, the choice clear in his mind. Pointing a finger toward her, he declares that her name shall be Seifeng from this day forward. Seifeng smiles up at him, accepting the name with grace before asking which secret realm they will raid next. King Oyster's expression hardens as he reminds her that they aren't players, they are monsters and NPCs. With a sinister, wide-toothed grin and glowing red eyes, he declares their top priority is to kill the remaining player. A scattered pile of bones lies forgotten in the dark, just another set of remains in this dungeon. Suddenly they're kicked aside, clattering across the uneven stone floor. Kabu stares at the debris, his expression sour. He's still trying to process how a weak-looking mushroom could have possibly taken out his partner, Rabu. He looks toward the tunnel, convinced that a standard level 1 monster couldn't pull off a stunt like that. He figures he's found himself a rare elite. Greed starts to take over as he imagines the loot. A blue-tier item drop would be enough to make him a fortune. He activates his orc charge, his massive body becoming a blur as he tears across the cavern. King Oyster stands right in the path of the stampede, looking incredibly small against the hulking orc. The ramming impact slams into the cave wall with an ear-splitting crash, shattering a massive chunk of the floor. but the target had already dodged to the side ages ago. Kabu stands in the middle of the impact zone, blood starting to seep from a fresh cut on his thigh. King Oyster watches from the sidelines, sweat dripping down his stalk. He realizes this warrior is way more durable than the archer he faced earlier. One slash barely did anything. Kabu's eyes glow red with fury. He's insulted that a trash mob actually managed to draw his blood. He roars and charges again, forcing the protagonist to scramble away as the ground shakes under the orc's weight. The chase leads them through a stone archway, with the mushroom barely staying a step ahead. They emerge at an underground dock, where a single, rickety wooden bridge spans across the dark water. Kabu bursts through the entrance, smashing aside anything in his way as he corners his prey. He stops at the start of the walkway, looking at the little mushroom standing at the very edge of the platform. King Oyster just stands there with his back turned, quietly staring out at the water, fully in max level asking for a beating mode. The orc hesitates for a second, wondering if it's a trap, but then he scoffs. To him, it's still just a brainless NPC. That's when the mushroom turns around and calmly gives him the middle finger. Kabu's rage reaches a breaking point, a vein bulging in his head as he takes the bait. He lets out a roar, promising to turn the little guy into mushroom paste as he charges onto the bridge. The old wood screams under his weight, the planks buckling and snapping as he rushes forward. He leaps into the air for a final overhead strike, certain this is the end. He smashes down with everything he's got, but the protagonist has already vanished from the spot. King Oyster is seen midair, having jumped to safety just as the entire bridge collapses under the orc. There's a massive splash as Kabu hits the water, his heavy armor and weapon dragging him down. He thrashes around in the freezing water, realization dawning on him that he's been lured into a death trap. King Oyster looks down from the ledge, mocking him. He points out that the orc dropped his axe and can't move properly in the water. Before the warrior can react, the protagonist launches the kitchen cleaver he found earlier. The blade whistles through the air and bites deep into Kabu's shoulder, spraying blood that dyes the water red. Yet, the hulking orc still aggressively barks that it's nothing more than a mosquito bite. Then an arrow from above pierces right through his throat, finishing off the arrogant player for good. An arrow whistles through the air, trailing white streaks as it targets its mark. The arrow finds its mark, piercing straight through the back of the orc player's head. Kabu coughs up blood, his eyes wide with shock as he realizes he's been ambushed. Blood sprays as another arrow tears through him, ending any chance of a counterattack. The orc's hand slips beneath the surface of the water with a final splash. Seifeng stays perched on the cliffside, catching her breath as the red glow of her berserk skill fades away. The system confirms the orc warrior has been eliminated as his body floats lifelessly. King Oyster hops over to the corpse, excited that it's finally his turn to harvest. Red light pulses as the mushroom begins absorbing nutrients from the fallen player's muscular body. A massive pillar of light erupts, signaling the start of a physical evolution. Dust and smoke billow out from the transformation site as the ground cracks. Yang Gu stands up, now a tall, muscular human with striking black and white hair. Seifeng is completely stunned, her eyes darting down as she realizes her boss is missing something important. Panicking big time, the guy is pointing and screaming, whereas the girl just stands there completely unbothered, openly scanning his whole package. He grabs a broken axe handle to cover up, laughing off the fact that he almost forgot to wear clothes. Yang Gu's status screen confirms he's now a level 2 mushroom man boss. His mycelium talent allows him to self-heal and steal skills from absorbed enemies, and he's already unlocked a level-restricted orc berserk ability for a temporary damage boost. He also gains the ability to separate spores from his body to grow soulless mushroom soldiers on corpses or other nutrients. These minions share their experience points with him and can be grafted together, with 2 slots currently available. The final bit of loot includes 2 magic pouches. These are small, portable storage items that can compress and hold weapons or other gear, making it easier to carry equipment through the dungeon. Standing on the barren ground, Yang Gu asks how they are supposed to leave this godforsaken place. Seifeng then explains that they are trapped at the absolute bottom of the Mushroom Man dungeon, and the only way out is to go head-on, fighting their way straight to the top. Yang Gu finds that hard to believe, pointing out that those level 1 orc players seem to enter the area without any trouble. Seifeng explains that players have special system privileges that let them dive straight into low-level dungeons, a shortcut they can't use. Impressed and confused, Yang Gu asks how he knows all of this. Seifeng admits he picked up a lot of secrets by eavesdropping on player conversations during his time as an NPC. Setting their sights on the path ahead, the pair begins their climb, prepared to clear every floor between them and the exit. They hit a fork in the road, slimes to the left and a graveyard to the right. Yang Gu decides to split up, sending Seifeng to the slime floor to grind for experience. He's got his eyes on the graveyard, claiming it'll eventually be their base of operations. He catches a whiff of the air and recoils. The stench of rot is thick even from this far away. Looking up into the cavern, he realizes this is the dungeon's trash chute for corpses and junk. The floor is a massive pit filled with skeletons and discarded bones. He sifts through the remains, looking for any residual nutrients he can still use. He finds a barrel leaking a mixture of health potions and graveyard humus. A nearby puddle of residual tar and humus provides more raw materials. He adds some torn magic books to the pile, completing his recipe for a new minion. Reaching out, he begins the process of planting a new mushroom soldier. Red energy flows from his hand, swirling the bones and potions into a chaotic vortex. The ground erupts as a new form begins to take shape amidst the magical storm. A pyroblast shroom emerges, its head bursting with living flames. A blue interface pops up, detailing the stats for the newly summoned level 2 pyroshroom. It's a fire-based minion equipped with an explosive blast for nutrient absorption and a flaming sprint that boosts its movement speed by 50%. Yang Gu isn't entirely impressed, nodding that while it looks tough, it's a bit on the small side. From the shadows behind him, a pair of glowing blue eyes watches his every move. A sudden discharge of blue electricity lights up the cavern. A massive lightning bolt slams into the ground, forcing Yang Gu to scramble back as the fight begins. From the shadows, a giant blue snail crackling with electrical sparks slides forward. The creature is identified as the level 2 Graveyard Dominator, also known as the Electro Snail. It pulses with blue energy, ready to defend its territory. Yang Gu observes the snail, noting that as a creature that feeds on graveyard humus, it's a direct competitor for resources. He calls upon his pyroshroom to take the stage. The pyroshroom launches a massive fire orb, its head glowing with intense heat. The attack is aimed directly at the snail. The fire orb streaks across the graveyard, lighting up the cavern. The electro snail watches the incoming projectile with glowing eyes. Fire and electricity collide in a violent explosion of sparks and embers. The impact sends a shockwave through the pit. A massive cloud of fire and smoke erupts, obscuring the battlefield. Bones and debris are sent flying in every direction. As the smoke clears, the charred remains of the explosion rain down. The ground is scorched where the attack landed. The electro snail isn't finished. It retreats into its shell as electricity crackles across its surface. It prepares a counterattack from within its defense. A bolt of lightning streaks across the floor, targeting the pyroshroom. The electrical discharge leaves a jagged trail on the cracked ground. The bolt misses as the pyroshroom uses flaming sprint, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. The minion is surprisingly agile for its size. Yang Gu watches the snail's slow movements, thinking he's found its primary weakness. He believes its lack of speed will be its downfall. The snail launches its own projectile, its eye stalks glowing with energy. The pyroshroom prepares to dodge again. Another massive fire orb from the pyroshroom heads towards the snail. The battle is becoming a chaotic exchange of elements. The fireball connects, resulting in another huge explosion. The air is thick with the smell of burning sulfur. When the smoke dissipates, the snail's shell is cracked and smoldering. Purple liquid leaks from its wounds as it lies on the ground. The snail appears defeated, its shell shattered into pieces. Smoke rises from the wreckage of the monster. Yang Gu stands on a ledge, watching the scene with his arms crossed. The Pyroshroom waves its arms, seemingly celebrating the victory. Yang Gu isn't convinced. He tells his minion to stop waving and double-check if the enemy is actually dead. Experience has taught him not to be overconfident. The Pyroshroom freezes as its eyes glow, sensing something is wrong. A sudden surge of electricity erupts from the snail's remains. The snail's body suddenly shifts, its shape changing as it sheds its heavy shell. It becomes much sleeker and more aerodynamic. With a sudden burst of speed, the snail zips across the graveyard. It's no longer the slow creature Yang Gu saw just moments ago. English, realizing he can no longer just stand on the sidelines, Yang Gu charges straight at the snail. With speed and the element of surprise on his side, he delivers a devastating strike before the creature can even react. The snail hurls taunts, laughing gleefully as it goes full lightning superhero mode and easily dodges every single counterattack. It seems to be thoroughly enjoying its newfound agility. The creature's movements are so fast they leave blue afterimages. Yang Gu struggles to keep track of its position. The snail continues its high-speed assault, its path traced by trails of blue electricity. It's completely dominating the battlefield. The snail mocks Yang Gu, calling him slow as it continues to zip around him. It feels completely untouchable in its new form. Yang Gu realizes that without its shell, the snail is as fast as lightning. He needs a new strategy if he wants to survive this. Electricity crackles across the ceiling as the snail continues its taunts. Yang Gu looks up, a new plan forming in his mind. Yang Gu notes that the creature is indeed much lighter without its house weighing it down. He starts to bait the snail into a specific position. The snail charges again, leaving a blur of blue and silver in its wake. It's becoming increasingly overconfident. Yang Gu's eyes narrow as he prepares for the final move. He's ready to end this game. A massive fireball is launched, but it's not aimed at the snail. Instead, it streaks towards the ceiling. The snail laughs, thinking Yang Gu has completely missed his shot. It continues to zip around, mockery in its voice. The fire orbs hit the ceiling with incredible force, shaking the entire cavern. Cracks begin to spread rapidly across the stone. Multiple fireballs impact the overhead rock, weakening the structure. The snail is still too focused on its own speed to notice. Utilizing that insane speed, it keeps flailing its arms and legs around, totally convinced it's some kind of superhero. Done showing off, it finally lands with a heavy stomp right in front of Yang Gu. Instantly, the snail keeps running its mouth to mock his speed, trash-talking that they are on entirely different levels. It clearly hasn't realized the gravity of the situation yet. Yang Gu gives a cold smile, telling the creature that he wasn't aiming for it in the first place. His trap is finally sprung. The entire ceiling gives way, burying the snail under a mountain of rock and dust. The cave-in is absolute. The snail is trapped under the rubble, its speed now completely neutralized. It stares up in shock as the final realization hits. The electro-snail zips through the smoke and falling debris, confident that its superior speed will keep it safe from Yang Gu's trap. It believes nothing can catch it in this chaotic environment. From the side, Yang Gu instantly activates the absorbed orc skill, entering a state of primal rage. System alerts flash continuously as he prepares to unleash his orc charge. The electro-snail looks up, its eye stalks glowing with blue energy as it tries to track the source of the new threat. It realizes it's no longer the only fast creature in the pit. A dark, swirling vortex erupts from the smoke, pulling the snail toward the center. The creature is shocked to find its cover being turned into a trap. The snail's eye stalks twitch frantically as it desperately looks for an escape route, still under the delusion that it can dodge the incoming attack. It is so hyper-focused on the mushroom in front of it that it fails to notice another threat closing in right before its eyes. Yang Gu slams its massive axe down, catching the snail mid-leap and smashing it against the cavern floor. Purple liquid sprays everywhere as the monster's shell is crushed. The electro-snail stares in disbelief, realizing it fell for an ambush hidden within another ambush. Its strategy was completely outplayed by Yang Gu's tactical depth. A final, massive impact sends a shockwave through the ground, burying the remains of the snail. The battle for the graveyard dominance is over. Yang Gu stands before the splatter on the wall, watching the last of the purple fluid drip down. He remains calm, his eyes fixed on the spoils of his victory. A system notification appears, confirming the elimination of the electro-snail. Yang Gu's hand glows with red energy as he prepares to harvest the monster's nutrients. Waves of red light pulse around Yang Gu as the experience points from the level 2 boss wash over him. He can feel his power growing with every pulse. The system announces that both Yang Gu and Seifeng have reached level 3. A new skill, Spirit Shroomification, is added to his arsenal, allowing him to empower his soldiers. Blue sparks and ethereal energy coalesce in the air, signaling the birth of a new minion. Yang Gu watches with interest as the formation takes shape. The system introduces the Electroshroom, a fast-moving soldier capable of releasing powerful electric shocks. It's the perfect addition to his growing faction. The newly evolved level 3 Electroshroom hovers in its glowing spirit state, crackling with blue lightning. Its appearance is sleek and formidable. Beside it, the level 2 Pyroblast Shroom also shifts into spirit state, its crown of fire burning brighter than ever before. Yang Gu's army is starting to take shape. Yang Gu surveys the area, deciding that this graveyard will serve as the base camp for his mushroom folk. He commands his minions to begin cleaning up the site. While his minions work, Yang Gu's thoughts turn to Seifeng. It's been a while since their last shared EXP gain, and he wonders if she's run into a particularly tough opponent. Deep in another part of the dungeon, dozens of green slimes have been pinned to the rocks by precise arrow shots. The trail of carnage leads toward a dark cavern entrance. Seifeng stands her ground as a massive shadow falls over her. She looks up, her bow at the ready as she confronts the one responsible for the slime infestation. The level 2 Slime King rises from the shadows, its towering, amorphous green body filling the hallway. It peers down at Seifeng with a single glowing red eye. The giant monster pauses, a sense of familiarity crossing its primitive mind. It asks Seifeng why it feels like it's seen her somewhere before. Without even bothering to answer, Seifeng fires an arrow straight into the Slime King's eye socket. A massive torrent of green energy erupts from the Slime King's mouth hole. The monster is offended that Seifeng hasn't responded to its questions. Seifeng leaps gracefully over the blast, drawing her bow while still in midair. She targets the glowing eye of the massive creature. Her arrows sink into the monster's jelly-like face, but the Slime King doesn't even flinch. The arrows seem to disappear into its translucent mass. The Slime King mocks her efforts, claiming that shooting holes into its body is useless. It boasts about its incredible elasticity as it prepares to retaliate. The monster slams its massive, amorphous limb down. Seifeng takes a direct hit and is sent flying, crashing heavily against the stone wall. The devastating blow sends her spinning uncontrollably, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and smoke. The Slime King gloats, claiming to be completely different from its lesser underlings. It laughs as its body easily absorbs the shock of every attack. The monster explains that as long as it has groundwater to replenish its fluids, physical attacks are a waste of energy. It seems completely untouchable. Looking down at Seifeng from its height, the Slime King tells her to die. It prepares to bring its full weight down on her. The monster raises a massive, club-like extension of its body. It's determined to crush the annoying, pink mushroom girl. The blow lands with incredible force, but something is wrong. The Slime King's body doesn't seem to have the same strength it had moments ago. The monster's eye hole widens in shock as its body starts to lose its shape. It looks down at its own limbs, which are starting to sag and run. The Slime King cries out, wondering why its body is suddenly collapsing. It feels its strength being drained away from within. The monster is horrified to see dozens of small mushrooms sprouting from its skin. They are growing at an impossible rate, their roots digging deep into its core. The mushrooms cover its entire body, turning its green mass into a feeding ground. The Slime King is becoming a living nursery. The monster realizes with a scream that even the groundwater beneath its feet has been drained dry by these parasitic growths. It has been completely neutralized. The Slime King desperately tries to remember when these parasites managed to infect its body. It can't understand how it was defeated so easily. The monster finally connects the dots, realizing that the parasitic spores were attached to the arrowheads from the very beginning. Every shot was a setup for this moment. As its body fails, the Slime King finally recognizes Seifeng. It remembers her as the pink-capped mushroom guy from its territory earlier. The Slime King's remains dissolve into a puddle of green ooze, leaving behind a massive, obsidian-colored horn that thuds heavily onto the cracked cavern floor. Seifeng stands before the prize as a system window identifies it as a devoured minotaur horn, a rare material so durable that even the Slime King's acidic body couldn't digest it. Wisps of glowing red nutrients rise from the slime corpse and flow into Seifeng and Yang Gu, as the system confirms a massive surge in experience points. Bathing in the radiant light of the level-up, Yang Gu looks on with a satisfied smirk, while Seifeng remains poised and ready for her next command. A notification announces that Seifeng has reached level 4, unlocking the mycelial string arrow skill, which allows her to generate high magic bowstrings and arrows from her own body. Yang Gu also hits level 4, gaining access to the Scout Shroom ability, which allows him to cultivate mushrooms for reconnaissance and information gathering through his mycelial network. Yang Gu hoists the massive horn onto his shoulder, standing before his glowing spirit minions, the Pyroblast Shroom and the Electro Shroom. Seifeng gazes down from a rocky ledge, observing that Yang Gu's newly planted Shroom soldiers have already efficiently cleared the entire area of enemies. Yang Gu grunts under the weight of the massive material, acknowledging that while the territory isn't particularly large, it serves their current needs well. He examines the texture of the horn, noting that its quality is vastly superior to any of the broken weapons or scraps they've scavenged from players so far. Despite the valuable find, Yang Gu points out a major obstacle. They still lack a skilled craftsman who can forge such materials into useful gear. As Seifeng suggests hunting for one, Yang Gu smiles and raises a finger, confident that his newly acquired scouting skill will make the search much easier. Yang Gu reaches out with his hand, channeling his power into the earth to search for any nearby players or corpses possessing the crafting skills they require. Veins of glowing red energy from the mycelial network surge across the rocky floor, spreading out like a web of light in every direction. Small, pinkish scout shrooms sprout from the network, their caps acting as sensors that relay information back to Yang Gu. One of the scouts picks up an energy signature nearby, catching the sound of weapons clashing and the voices of players engaged in a struggle. Through the scout's vision, a group of blue orcs is seen cornering a lone figure in a secluded cave, demanding that he surrender and return to their forges. The dwarf craftsman stands his ground with a defiant glare, swearing he will never return to the slavery that worked his people to death. Refusing to tolerate the defiance, a blue orc slaver lunges forward with his spear, his red eyes glowing with murderous intent as he moves to execute the dwarf. The lifeless body of the dwarf craftsman lies wedged deep within a rocky crevice, his battle ended in defeat. Glowing pink mycelial tendrils reach out from the shadows, seeking a connection with the fallen warrior. Yang Jun and Seifeng stand at the edge of the chasm, looking down at the grim scene. The young leader sighs, lamenting that they arrived just a step too late to save the craftsman's life. Seifeng peers into the darkness, her expression one of confusion as she fails to see what he's looking at. He calmly instructs her to extend her mycelium and link with the network to share his vision. As her own tendrils glow with energy, Seifeng's eyes widen in realization. The connection is successful, and the hidden details of the cave floor finally become clear to her. Deciding that he will save the dead since the living are beyond his reach, Yang Jun prepares to offer the craftsman a new existence. To him, it's simply a different way of living within the dungeon's ecosystem. He begins the process of transplanting a pyroshroom into the host body through the complex mycelial network. A violent surge of energy erupts from the connection point, sending sparks and magical discharge flying against the stone walls. A massive vortex of swirling white and pink light consumes the crevice, signaling the completion of the resurrection. From the dissipating energy, a powerful new figure emerges, his skin glowing red and his hair replaced by a smoldering mushroom cap. Yang Jun pulls up the status screen for his newly resurrected soldier, Firehammer. He's a level 4 Pyroshroom dwarf artisan with a primary focus on strength and fire magic, granting him increased resistance to flames. Along with standard mushroomkin traits, his hybrid form gives him a natural edge against toxins and physical attacks. His artisan skills are now supercharged by his fire attribute, making his crafting far more efficient. His ultimate weapon is Fiery Mycelium, a special skill that lets him launch controllable flaming hammers that draw power directly from the mycelial network. The newly formed soldier, wreathed in flames, stares at his own hands in utter disbelief. He questions his new state, his voice filled with the confusion of a being born anew. Yang Jun steps forward, confirming that he brought the dwarf back to serve as his first elite shroom soldier. With an authoritative tone, he gives the warrior his new name, Firehammer. Firehammer tries to speak of his home and the plight of his people, but Yang Jun cuts him off. He reveals that his tracker shrooms have been following the trolls responsible all along. Deep in the dungeon, a group of blue-skinned trolls wanders through a vast, dimly lit cavern. The heavy foot of a troll steps dangerously close to a small, glowing mushroom tracker hidden in the rocky ground. The blue orc slaver acting as mini-boss laughs cruelly, discussing their plans to simply capture more dwarves from the dungeon if their current slaves die from exhaustion. His laughter suddenly dies out as his red eye catches a glint of movement. He stops in his tracks, his senses warning him of an approaching threat. They look down the path to see Firehammer's fiery silhouette, standing tall amidst the shadows of the cave. The slaver scoffs, dismissing the newcomer as just another wandering elite mob that has somehow strayed into their territory. Seeing nothing but a bonus source of experience and loot, the blue orc slaver lunges forward with a predatory grin. He hurls his spear with incredible force, the weapon whistling through the air as it targets the stationary Firehammer. Firehammer doesn't flinch, instead swinging a massive, ornate hammer that glows with the intensity of a forge. The hammer connects with the projectile in a shower of sparks, the force of the block creating a powerful shockwave. Debris and dust explode outward from the collision, the ground cracking under the pressure of the two forces. A secondary explosion of fire follows, momentarily blinding the attackers as the cave fills with smoke. The slaver barely manages to dodge a follow-up swing, a bead of sweat rolling down his face as he realizes the sheer power of this mushroomkin. Firehammer's weapon hovers in the air, still burning with a fierce magical flame that seems to have a life of its own. The hammer slams back down into the earth, creating a massive crater and sending a wave of heat toward the retreating trolls. The group is left in a state of shock, unable to comprehend how a level 3 elite mob could possess such high-level, auto-targeting gear. With a roar, Firehammer initiates another attack, his hammer carving a glowing arc through the dusty air. The weapon catches one of the trolls square in the chest, the impact accompanied by a violent burst of fire that sends the enemy flying. Firehammer maintains his momentum, spinning the hammer around his body to build up even more kinetic energy. He launches the weapon forward, the hammer trailing a streak of fire as it homes in on the trolls like a heat-seeking missile. The hammer strikes a massive obsidian pillar, the force of the blow causing deep cracks to spread through the structural support. As stone fragments rain down, Firehammer uses the distraction to close the gap, his movements fluid and fast despite his bulky frame. He leaps from the crumbling pillar, his body silhouetted against the dim light of the cavern as he prepares to land a finishing blow. The blue orc slaver looks up, his expression one of pure terror as the flaming dwarf descends upon him. Firehammer activates mycelial entanglement, and glowing rings of energy snap around the slaver's limbs, pinning him in place. Mycelial ignition, Firehammer shouts, triggering a series of violent explosions from the energy rings that tear through the troll's defenses. He slams his fists down to complete the combo, his form a dark shadow against the blinding light of the fire. A colossal pillar of flame erupts from the ground, incinerating the mini-boss and leaving nothing but scorched rock in its wake. Firehammer stands tall as he swings his massive, glowing weapon, facing off against the towering silhouette of a blue orc slaver. The air is thick with smoke and embers as the battle reaches its peak. With a thunderous punch slamming straight into the target, the impact sends blood and debris flying across the cave floor. The slaver doesn't even have time to scream as he takes the full, devastating force of the blow. The dwarf-shroom hybrid doesn't stop there, unleashing a flurry of strikes that carve white arcs through the air, pushing the enemy back toward the wall. Every swing is fueled by a burning intensity that illuminates the dark cave. In a calculated move, Firehammer targets a structural pillar, the weapon's impact causing cracks to spiderweb across the stone as dust begins to rain from the ceiling. A well-placed explosive discharge sends chunks of rock flying toward the retreating trolls. The blue orc slaver looks up in realization, realizing Firehammer's plan to bring the entire cave ceiling down on them. The structural wooden supports splinter and snap under the strain. One of the trolls manages to leap away from the falling debris, boastfully claiming he can still dodge despite taking several heavy hits. He scrambles across the rubble, trying to put distance between himself and the dwarf. Firehammer isn't done yet, activating his Firehammer ignition skill as he slams his weapon into the ground. A shockwave of pure flame erupts outward, turning the cave floor into an inferno. The weapon itself glows with an unbearable heat, trailing a wake of fire as it spins through the air like a lethal meteor. The cavern is completely engulfed in a blinding orange glow. Firehammer unleashes the rain of flying Firehammer's skill, sending a barrage of flaming hammers raining down from above. The slaver stands helpless in the middle of the bombardment, his silhouette a dark shadow against the fire. The blue orc slaver's eyes widen in terror as he realizes he has no way to dodge the sheer number of incoming projectiles. Blood drips from his nose and mouth, the heat of the fire drying it instantly. A series of massive explosions rock the cavern, each one marking the impact of a firehammer on the troll party. The entire area is consumed by a chaotic vortex of flame and shattering rock. The smoke begins to clear, revealing the aftermath of the one-sided slaughter. A system notification confirms that all the troll players have been eliminated. Firehammer stands triumphant amidst the smoldering remains, his form wreathed in a fatting pink aura of power. The battle's end signals a significant growth for the entire group. Firehammer hits level 5, officially stepping into his role as an artisan shroom. This level up grants him the salvage hammer skill, allowing him to smash through useless junk to recover any hidden materials that might actually be worth something. Yang Jun reaches level 5 as well, gaining access to a new variety called the Farmer Shroom. These are dual-purpose workers designed for daily tasks like gathering and forging, though they're sturdy enough to be armed and deployed as soldiers in an emergency. Seifeng joins the level 5 club and learns a powerful new mobility skill called Mycelial Arrow Step. This ability lets her teleport instantly to the location of any arrow she fires, making her incredibly difficult for enemies to pin down. Yang Jun sends over the coordinates and tells Firehammer to meet up with him. The skirmish with the trolls is over, but there's a lot more ground to cover. Firehammer is completely floored by the boss's appearance. He didn't expect a powerful Mushroomkin leader to look exactly like a regular human. Yang Jun explains that their reconstructed forms are heavily influenced by what they were in their previous lives. Since he was a human before, his body stayed that way after the change. He notes that Seifeng was also human before being turned into a Mushroomkin, which is why she retained her appearance too. It's just the logical result of how their race works now. Handing over the Minotaur horn they found earlier, Yang Jun asks if it can be forged into some proper weapons. He's looking for something more reliable than scavenged tools. Firehammer checks the horn and confirms it's excellent material for crafting. However, he's going to need a few more resources to outfit the entire team properly. Yang Jun tells him not to sweat it since they're standing right in the middle of a massive boneyard. There should be plenty of scrap and materials lying around if they look closely. The team begins searching the area, and it doesn't take long for things to start happening. They're picking through the rubble of the cavern for anything useful. Loot starts dropping as they clear through the debris. They're finding a mix of old weapons and discarded equipment left behind by whatever used to live here. One of the better finds is a discarded demonic iron bracelet. It's a bit rough, but Firehammer can definitely work with the metal. Firehammer gets straight to work, striking the metal with powerful, flaming blows. Sparks fly as he uses his fire-based abilities to soften the tough materials. He even manages to find some raw demonic iron ore embedded right in the walls of the cavern. It's exactly the kind of high-tier stuff he needs to finish the gear. A small level 5 farmer shroom helps out by tending the furnace. Every minion in the base has their own role to play in the production line. Firehammer activates his specialized forging hammer skill, bringing down a massive blow that glows with intense heat. The metal begins to take the shape of a true weapon. The weapons are finally finished, and Firehammer presents them to the boss. He even used the leftover scraps to put together some proper clothes and shoes. Yang Jun draws his new refined double-edged sword and is immediately impressed. It's a massive upgrade from the crude axes they were using before. The blade is a level 5 weapon that holds a small amount of magic power. It's perfect for channeling spells during combat, though it's not indestructible. Seifeng receives a new weapon as well, a refined hunter blade bow. She looks it over, ready to see how it performs in the field. Her new bow can use mycelium as a string, allowing her to fire off enchanted arrows by channeling her own power directly through the weapon. Firehammer also reveals that he's stitched magic pouches into the lining of their clothes. It'll make it way easier to pull their weapons out of thin air when things get hairy. Seifeng asks where they're heading next. Yang Jun's plan is ambitious. They're going to clear out this entire floor to secure their territory. He spent the last few days scouting the area through the mycelium network. He knows the grand catacombs are at the very bottom, but getting there isn't simple. He explains that there are one-way barriers on every level that only let things go down. To move around properly, they need to find the specific passages connecting the floors. For now, the best move is to fight through each level to eliminate any threats. They can't afford to let enemies linger so close to their home base. Seifeng wonders if they should bring Firehammer along for the extra strength. He's not just a blacksmith. He hits people even harder than he hits iron. Yang Jun decides he needs someone to stay behind and guard the base. Thanks to their shared connection, Firehammer will still get experience points from everything they kill anyway. As they start moving through the corridor, Yang Jun notices a strange glow from beneath his feet. Something in the floor is reacting to his presence. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking and debris kicks up into the air. A hidden mechanism has been triggered, and it's moving fast. A massive stone wall begins to slide down from the ceiling, threatening to cut them off from each other. They barely have a second to react. The heavy slab slams into place, completely blocking the path. Yang Jun is left staring at the stone, realized he's been separated from Seifeng. He isn't bothered, figuring a single punch should be more than enough to clear a path. He steps up to the wall and places his hand on the cold stone. He activates Firehammer's shared flame mycelium, wrapping his entire arm in a swirling fire. It's a specialized fire-based explosive attack. He throws a massive punch directly into the stone slab. The impact creates a huge explosion, sending fire and rock fragments flying everywhere. The blast is intense, filling the entire hallway with smoke. It looks like it should have been enough to reduce the entire wall to rubble. But as the smoke clears, a glowing yellow magic array flares up across the surface. The wall hasn't moved an inch. It's holding firm against the strike. Yang Jun realizes this is a reinforced trap wall bolstered by magic. It's much tougher than a regular stone slab and won't break so easily. Seeing that brute force won't work, he decides they'll just have to take separate paths for now. There's no point wasting all his mana trying to break through. He turns his back on the wall and looks into the dark passage that opened up behind him. It's time to push forward alone and see where it leads. A system message confirms he's entered a secret realm called the Slippery Corridor. The air feels damp, and the ground is coated in a strange substance. Small, glowing blue points of light begin to flicker in the darkness ahead. As he moves closer, he realizes those aren't lights, they're eyes. Yang Jun narrows his eyes, focusing on the movement in the shadows. He can hear a strange, slithering sound echoing off the wet walls. An entire swarm of level 3 electro-snails crawls out to block his path. The whole floor is covered with them, and they're all crackling with blue electricity. One of the snails recognizes him instantly. They realize he's the same guy who wiped out their kin in the Grand Catacombs. The swarm doesn't waste any time and coordinates a group attack. Crackling blue energy surges between their stalks as they prepare to fire. A massive discharge of electricity floods the corridor, lighting up the dark tunnels. Yang Jun just stands his ground, looking completely unfazed by the surge. The bolts connect in a violent blast of lightning. The snails pour everything they have into this single strike, hopping to end the fight right here. The smoke begins to settle, and the snails are already celebrating. They think they've successfully avenged their fallen brothers. Suddenly, one of the snails is struck down from the side, purple ichor spraying across the floor. Yang Jun is already on the move, and he isn't even singed. He moves through the swarm like a blur, cutting them down before they can even track his position. The snails realize they're dealing with something way beyond their level. Desperate, they decide to shed their shells to gain a boost in speed. It's a high-risk move, but they know they won't survive otherwise. One of the shellless snails lunges forward, crackling with electricity. They're determined to show him the true power of their tribe's last resort. Before the snail can reach him, it's suddenly halted in midair. Glowing pink strands wrap around its body, leaving it completely immobilized. Yang Jun's mycelium spreads through the room, ensnaring every single snail in the corridor. They struggle against the threads, but the trap is already set. He activates mycelial flashburn, and the threads begin to glow with an intense, fiery heat. He stands calm as the technique primes for detonation. The entire corridor erupts in a series of violent explosions. The fire-infused mycelium incinerates everything it touched, leaving nothing but scorched earth. A cascade of system notifications appears as his experience points skyrocket. Clearing out the swarm in one go was a massive boost for his level. With the path cleared, a massive stone door at the end of the corridor begins to groan. It swings open, revealing a chamber filled with an eerie orange light. Debris falls from the ceiling as he steps into the new area. The force of the door opening seems to have unsettled the very foundation of the room. Yang Jun scans the large, open chamber, but it appears to be completely vacant. He walks toward the center, his sword ready just in case. He finds it strange that the boss room would be this quiet. Usually, there's a guardian waiting right at the entrance to welcome intruders. A faint red glimmer catches his eye from the darkness above. He looks up and spots a massive silhouette clinging to the ceiling. The shadow detaches itself and starts spinning toward him like a high-speed drill. The air pressure alone is enough to crack the floor beneath him. He dives out of the way just as the object slams into the ground. A cloud of dust and stone fragments explodes outward from the impact site. It's a massive snail shell, and it's still spinning with incredible momentum. Yang Jun realizes he's found the guardian of this floor. The shell bounces off the wall and comes right back at him. It carves a deep groove into the stone as it builds up even more speed. Yang Jun raises his sword to block, and the impact sends sparks flying everywhere. He's pushed back by the sheer force of the spinning shell. The shell doesn't stop, continuing its relentless orbital attack. It's a blur of dark metal and stone, seeking any opening in his defense. He tracks the movement carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to counter. The shell arcs through the air, ready for another devastating pass. As the shell closes in again, Yang Jun lunges forward with a glowing hand. He's timing his next move to catch the boss right at the peak of its momentum. He makes contact, and a pulse of red energy ripples across the surface of the shell. The spinning starts to falter as his power interferes with its rotation. He activates mycelial lightning conduit, channeling all that stored electrical energy back into the boss. A massive dome of red lightning erupts from the point of contact. The explosion is massive, shattering the ground and sending a shockwave through the entire chamber. The spinning shell is finally knocked off its course. When the dust finally settles, Yang Jun finds himself standing over a deep crater. The boss has finally stopped its mindless spinning and is ready to reveal itself. The shell unfolds and a humanoid figure emerges, the level 5 Snail King. It stands tall in samurai-style armor, holding a long, curved katana. Yang Jun isn't intimidated, finding the second phase transition quite interesting. He tightens his grip on his sword, prepared for a proper duel. High up on a nearby cliff, the tip of an arrow is scratching a jagged outline into the stone. Looks like someone is absent-mindedly unleashing their inner artist while a brutal battle rages fiercely below. Seifeng is crouched on the floor, looking completely bored. Since the walls split them up, she hasn't seen a single monster to fight. She leans back against the stone, nodding that her experience bar is still going up. She's essentially getting a free ride from all the kills Yang Jun is racking up on his side. Back in the boss room, the ground is already being torn up by the intensity of the fight. Sparks fly as the two combatants test each other's strength. The Snail King lunges forward with a flurry of strikes, his katana moving like a blur. Yang Jun parries each blow, the sound of clashing steel echoing through the chamber. They exchange a series of lightning-fast blows, their weapons locked in a struggle for dominance. Neither side is giving an inch as they push back against each other. Yang Jun swings his sword in a wide arc, forcing the Snail King to jump back. The wind from the strike is enough to kick up a massive cloud of dust. The Snail King quickly recovers and launches a vertical slash. Yang Jun sidesteps the blade, the air whistling as it passes just inches from his head. The boss's sword slams into the ground, sending a shockwave that cracks the floor. Yang Jun is already positioning himself for the next exchange. Water begins to spray out from the gaps in the Snail King's shell, coating the floor in a thick, shimmering layer. The room quickly fills with the sound of rushing liquid. A massive torrent of water erupts from the ceiling, drenching the entire chamber in seconds. Yang Jun watches the deluge, realizing the boss is altering the terrain to its favor. Red energy bolts hiss through the air, narrowly missing Yang Jun as he twists his body mid-jump. The projectiles leave trails of steam where they pass through the damp air. The bolts strike the stone floor, sending small plumes of water and debris flying. Yang Jun lands lightly, keeping his eyes fixed on the source of the attack. He leaps backward as a spreading pool of dark liquid reaches for his feet. He doesn't know what it is, but his instincts tell him to stay clear. Yang Jun stares at the substance, nodding its strange consistency. He decides that dodging is the only safe move until he understands the boss's gimmick. Under the pressure of the flowing water, the pink mycelial strands lose their grip on the stone. They peel away in clumps, drifting uselessly in the current. Yang Jun looks down in surprise as his control over the battlefield literally slips away. Without the mycelium anchored, his movement options are severely limited. He drops into a low crouch, his hand splashing into the shallow water as he tries to regain his balance. The floor has become a treacherous, frictionless surface. A sudden blur of motion cuts through the spray as the Snail King launches a high-speed counterattack. The boss moves with incredible ease across the slick floor. Yang Jun blocks a powerful downward slash, sparks cascading from the clashing steel. The force of the blow vibrates through his arms, threatening to knock him off his feet. The Snail King presses his advantage, circling Yang Jun with fluid, predatory movements. The protagonist struggles to pivot, his boots sliding uselessly against the wet stone. Yang Jun grits his teeth, realizing he can't even stand properly in this environment. The water isn't just a nuisance, it's a direct counter to his combat style. The Snail King lunges again, his blade trailing white foam through the air. He mocks Yang Jun, declaring that no intruder can win on his home turf. They clash in the center of the room, the impact sending ripples through the water. Yang Jun is forced to slide backward, unable to anchor himself for a proper counterthrust. A close-up reveals the Snail King's dark, segmented helm. His eye stalks remain level and focused, tracking every one of Yang Jun's desperate movements. Yang Jun's eyes narrow as he watches the boss's next move. He's being pushed to the edge of the chamber, his options dwindling with every second. A violent explosion of water erupts as the Snail King slams his sword into the floor. The shockwave tosses Yang Jun aside, sending him tumbling across the slick surface. The Snail King stands tall, questioning if Yang Jun is really a mushroom man. He laughs at the idea of a fungus trying to compete with his kind in the local ecology. Yang Jun extends his hand, and red electrical arcs begin to dance between his fingers. He's preparing to discharge a massive shock, but the Snail King doesn't look worried. The Snail King's face is a mask of arrogance, his toothy grin widening. He knows exactly what the protagonist is trying to do, and he's already prepared. The boss rushes forward, a trail of white spray following his swift movement. He isn't giving Yang Jun any time to build up his energy for the attack. Purple lightning cracks across the ceiling, illuminating the chamber in strobe-like flashes. The electrical energy is wild and unfocused, dissipating into the damp walls. A massive sphere of light erupts between the two combatants, throwing them both backward. The discharge of energy is deafening, leaving the air smelling of ozone. Yang Jun recovers quickly, though a thin trickle of blood runs down his chin. He looks winded, but his eyes remain sharp and analytical. The Snail King gloats, realizing that Yang Jun is trying to use the water's conductivity against him. He laughs, telling the hero that he won't fall for the same trick twice. He explains that as the master of this turf, he can increase the water's electrical resistance. Yang Jun's shocks are being weakened before they can even reach their target. Yang Jun's eyes begin to glow with an intense red light as a faint smile touches his lips. He tells the boss that dodging isn't as good as being in the right spot. The Snail King looks down in confusion, noticing a subtle shift in the water beneath him. His stalks twitch as he senses a new presence in the room. Thin, glowing pink strands have woven themselves into a perfect grid under the surface of the water. They've been there the whole time, hidden by the turbulence. The Snail King realizes with a start that the entire floor is covered in mycelium. He has accidentally retreated right into the center of a massive, glowing trap. He tries to move, but the mycelium has already begun to tighten around his legs. He shouts that it doesn't matter, since he can still resist the protagonist's electricity. Yang Jun raises his hand, the single word ignite appearing in sharp blue text. He tells the boss that some people just never learn. The mycelium erupts into white-hot flames, turning the water-filled floor into a boiling inferno. The Snail King's scream is lost in the roar of the fire. A massive pillar of fire reaches for the ceiling, consuming everything in the center of the room. The intense heat turns the standing water into a blinding cloud of steam. As the smoke begins to clear, debris falls from the scorched walls. The chamber is quiet once more, the only sound being the crackle of dying embers. Yang Jun stands alone in the wreckage, his expression calm as he watches the remains of his enemy. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and salt. The Snail King is a charred shell of his former self, his armor blackened and cracked. He wheezes, accusing Yang Jun of having no martial honor for switching to fire. With a final gasp, the boss falls silent, his body beginning to dissolve into light. A system notification chimes, announcing that Yang Jun has reached level 6. Yang Jun stands in a pillar of pink light as the level-up process completes. He looks stronger and more composed, his injuries fatting as his stats increase. A new system window appears, detailing a storage ability. He and his subordinates can now generate mycelial pouches to store and compress equipment inside their bodies. A second notification explains that scout shrooms have been upgraded. They can now function as network download ports, providing a new way to share information. A blue system window outlines the details for cultivating Mushroom guards, specialized frontline soldiers capable of melee and ranged attacks. These units are programmed to explode with a flaming sword strike upon death, though their leader can also trigger the detonation at will. A second notification reports that Seifeng has mastered Shatter Arrow, a core ability that accumulates rage through basic attacks. When fully charged, she fires a powerful arrow that detonates into multiple spore bombs upon reaching its target. The Dwarf Craftsman unlocks Dwarven Refining, a core skill that converts built-up rage into a localized burst of intense heat. This heat is used to break down impurities and refine materials with a single touch of his hand. Yang Jun stands amidst the debris, his gaze fixed on a pile of shattered stone near the back of the chamber. He detects a unique scent coming from beneath the rubble and decides to call for the Dwarf Craftsman's expertise to investigate. A sudden eruption of dust and rock fragments bursts from the pile as someone forces their way through from the other side. The air in the cavern becomes thick with gray particulate matter, obscuring the view. The Dwarf Craftsman, now possessing the features of a muscular mushroom man, emerges from the cloud while coughing. His transformation has granted him a red, spotted mushroom cap and glowing symbols on his brawny arms. A close-up reveals a mound of dark, jagged rocks that appear almost metallic under the dim light of the cave. These stones have been hidden beneath layers of debris for centuries. The dwarf craftsman holds up a shard of the dark stone, identifying it as blackrot stone. He explains that these lumps are the product of magical waste and organic humus merging over a long period. Yang Jun looks at the fragment with a dubious expression, unimpressed by its origin. He notes that the material doesn't seem like it would hold much value on its own. The dwarf craftsman admits that to any normal craftsman, the stones would be considered trash. He holds the black rock steady as he prepares to show Yang Jun why it is actually a hidden treasure. He tosses the stone into the air with a confident smirk, explaining that his recent transformation has given him a new way to process such materials. He catches it as pink energy begins to gather in his palm. Pink magical energy flares around the dwarf craftsman's hand as he initiates mycelium extraction. The black rock begins to disintegrate, its dark outer layer crumbling away to reveal the essence within. The process concludes with a vibrant flash of light, and a system message confirms that the residue extraction is successful. The dwarf craftsman's fist glows with the power of the refined material. A glowing, diamond-shaped shard labeled Magic Silverstone fragment floats in the air, surrounded by shimmering particles. The once worthless stone has been distilled into a high-purity magical resource. Yang Jun's jaw drops in amazement as he realizes the potential of the discovery. He notes that materials of this quality would be worth an absolute fortune to players in the outside world. They inspect the fragment through a magnifying lens, marveling at its intricate structure and inner glow. Though the shard is small, Yang Jun expresses concern that its size might limit its usefulness. The dwarf craftsman gestures toward the remaining pile of blackrot stone, his eyes wide with excitement for the work ahead. Yang Jun stands by, watching as his subordinate prepares to dig further. Yang Jun gives him the green light to continue, declaring that the entire cave now belongs to him for his work. He encourages the dwarf craftsman to uncover as many fragments as possible. The dwarf craftsman immediately sets to work, pink energy sparking as he breaks down the stones with frantic energy. Rock dust and magical residue fill the air as he begins a high-speed extraction marathon. A small text box indicates that a short duration of time has passed since the work began. The rhythmic sounds of stone being crushed echo through the hollow chamber. A sequence of system alerts fills the screen, showing the successful acquisition of ironstone, aluminum stone, silverstone, copperstone, and goldstone fragments. The dwarf craftsman stands triumphant amidst a cloud of sparkling dust. The cavern suddenly begins to shake violently, dust falling from the ceiling as a massive tremor rocks the ground. Yang Jun yells for the dwarf craftsman to stop his digging before the whole place collapses, but the dwarf quickly clarifies that he isn't the cause. A colossal black worm with a circular maw lined with glowing blue teeth bursts through the stone floor. The segmented beast rears up, its massive body taking up the entire height of the tunnel. A tiny mushroom soldier is pumped up and ready for blood, charging forward while screaming at the top of its lungs. It leaps into the air with its sword raised, but a hand suddenly reaches out and snatches it before it can get far. Yang Jun holds the little guy by its cap, telling it to calm down and help Firehammer with some chores since its turn to fight hasn't come yet. He turns to Seifeng and gives the order to head out, letting her know the new shroom soldiers have been integrated into the network and are ready for deployment. Farther in the cave, a scout shroom hears a violent grinding sound coming from the ceiling. The one-eyed scout reports that an enemy is about to bore right through the roof of the blackrot stone cave. Yang Jun stays calm, crossing his arms as he orders his team to distract the monster and lure it into the corridor to keep the main cave safe. The scout acknowledges the command, just as the ceiling begins to crack under a massive weight. The little messenger is shaking in its boots, babbling as the tremors get worse. Suddenly, a massive, toothy maw bursts through the stone, lit up with an eerie blue glow. Dust and debris rain down as the beast continues to drill its way into their territory. Yang Jun watches the massive creature descend, while Firehammer continues to pound away at his anvil in the background. He recognizes the intruder as a carrion blackbug, a tough competitor that usually occupies the same niche as the snails. Firehammer keeps his focus on his work, telling the boss he'll make the fight a lot easier once he finishes the piece he's crafting. Seifeng leaps into action, striking the beast as soon as it clears the ceiling. Her blade connects with a heavy clang, sending sparks flying off the creature's armored hide. She delivers a fast series of slashes, her movements a blur as she tries to find a weak spot in the monster's defense. Despite her speed, her sword barely leaves a scratch on the thick shell. Smoke rises from where her blade hit, but the monster seems completely unharmed. Seifeng pulls back, realizing the bug's armor is so hard it's actually starting to chip her sword. A tiny scout shroom lands on her shoulder, telling her that Firehammer's new gear is finished and ready for download. The little guy instructs her to pull the weapon directly from the mycelium network. She places her hand on the scout's cap, and a digital interface appears as the transfer starts. The progress ring fills up rapidly, glowing a bright pink as the data streams in. The carrion blackbug doesn't wait, lunging forward with its massive mouth open. Just as the beast is about to snap, the download finishes and a glowing magic silver arrow appears in Seifeng's hand. She stands her ground, the arrow crackling with energy as she nocks it and takes aim. It's an armor-piercing explosive arrow, and it's glowing with enough power to pierce the beast. She releases the shot, a streak of pink light that pierces right through the bug's open maw. Immediately after firing, she quickly leaps clear of her position to evade the giant worm's oncoming charge. Seifeng lands on her feet and watches as the arrow begins to detonate inside the monster. Glowing energy veins spread across the bug's neck, lighting it up from the inside. A massive orb of light expands within the creature's gullet. The internal explosion is violent, tearing through the beast's head and sending gore flying everywhere. Multiple blasts ripple through the bug's body, shredding its armored shell into pieces. One final eruption completes the job, leaving nothing but a steaming mess on the cave floor. A system notification confirms the kill, and Seifeng's experience points take a jump. She's barely had a second to rest when the scout shroom warns her that there are more coming. The scout reports another blackbug heading their way, spotted further out in the cave system. Seifeng is out of breath, but the scout tells her to harvest the dead bug for energy and let the newly cultivated shroom soldiers handle the next wave. Bright light erupts from the ground as the mycelium network activates. A level 6 boomshroom guard is loaded into the battle, spear in hand and ready to defend the cave. Seifeng looks over at the two newly summoned boomshroom guards, confused because she thought they could only download one at a time. She starts counting the roster. They've got Yang Jun, Firehammer, herself, a worker, and the two boomshrooms, which already hits their current limit of 6. The scout shroom clarifies that Seifeng doesn't actually count toward the limit, since she's integrated directly into the mycelium network. Nearby, a massive black monster thrashes around, kicking up a thick cloud of dust as it tries to recover. The scout shroom watches the beast closely, wondering if it's keeping its mouth clamped shut because it's scared of another explosive arrow. One of the boomshroom guards doesn't hesitate, charging forward with a flaming spear. The shroom soldier leaps into the air and brings its weapon down on the monster's head with a violent crash. A massive red explosion erupts on impact, engulfing the creature's upper body in fire. The monster roars in pain as it slammed back against the cave wall by the sheer force of the blast. The boomshroom guard follows up immediately with a heavy slash from its glowing red blade. Sparks fly as the sword carves a path through the monster's tough hide, lighting up the dark cavern. The shroom soldier spins in midair, delivering a powerful circular strike that tears into the beast. The impact is so strong it sends the massive creature flying backward, crashing into the rock face. Seifeng watches from the side, impressed that a single shroom soldier could have enough raw power to toss a monster that size. The two boomshroom guards move in perfect sync, rushing the beast together for a final assault. They leap onto the monster's back, weapons ready to deliver a finishing blow. Their blades sink deep into the monster's neck, drawing a spray of sparks and dark debris. They continue their relentless assault, hacking away at the creature's thick armor until it starts to buckle. Suddenly, a self-destruct flying sword skill is activated, turning the weapons into glowing, unstable bombs. A massive explosion rocks the entire cavern, completely vaporizing the monster in a pillar of fire and smoke. A system notification pops up. The tribe has reached level 7, and Yang Jun has unlocked a new boss-exclusive skill called Lone Sovereign. On top of that, they can now cultivate archer shrooms, ranged units that gain a stat boost when fighting alongside Seifeng. Another unit is unlocked, the Rot Thorax Shroom, a worker type specialized in drilling through mountains and digging tunnels. Seifeng is stunned by the level of teamwork these soldiers displayed, realizing they're fighting far too smoothly to be mindless. She asks the Scout Shroom how they're able to coordinate their attacks with such perfect timing. The Scout confirms her suspicion. Yang Jun is micromanaging every single one of them through the network. Glowing pink lines of energy pulse through the dark tunnels, connecting the battlefield back to the boss. Yang Jun is sitting back on a stone throne, thinking about how controlling an army of shroom soldiers feels just like playing a video game. He transmits a message to Seifeng, telling her to clean up the mess and bring anything useful back to Firehammer. Seifeng acknowledges the order as she stands among the smoldering remains of the monster. She looks down at a pile of glowing red sludge left over from the creature's body as the energy dissipates. Blood and debris are splattered across the cavern walls from the final, violent explosion. A system message informs them that the corpse has been absorbed, granting Yang Jun a new passive called Limited Black Tough Skin. Seifeng picks up one of the monster's massive, curved teeth, nodding that its durability will make it a perfect material for Firehammer's forge. A massive hole opens up in the cave's ceiling, showering the cavern floor with heavy debris. Dust and smoke settle as the shaft remains dark and empty above them. Deep inside the hole, a pair of glowing purple eyes peers down from the shadows. The figure watches from the darkness, observing the state of the lower floor. This is Grim Reaper number 10, the administrator of the bottom floor. He's annoyed because the high-level monsters he sent down were wiped out way too fast. He can't believe his elite blackbugs kicked the bucket so easily against the local trash mobs. The Reaper considers heading down to handle the problem personally, but he's not thrilled about the extra work. He scoffs at the idea, deciding his measly monthly salary isn't worth risking his life over. Instead, he turns to a swarm of local bacteria monsters. He's got plenty of cannon fodder to throw at the problem. The administrator spreads his arms and asks which of them wants to be promoted to player status. The bacteria are shocked, having expected to rot away in this dungeon forever. They ask if low-tier monsters like them can really become players. The Reaper tells them that in this dungeon, their status is whatever he grants them. He's the one in charge of their destiny. He channels his power into a magical book, and a system notification confirms that bacteria monster player privileges have been unlocked. Now they can move freely, fight, and even loot treasure. One of the newly promoted monsters peers over the edge of the hole, looking down into the abyss. The Reaper orders them to eliminate the bug below. If they succeed, the entire bottom floor and its rare stones will be theirs. A swarm of red-eyed bacteria dives into the hole, eager to claim their new territory. Down in the caverns, the group scouts around, but they haven't seen any sign of their target yet. One of them gets distracted and drifts away from the pack. It spots a sturdy wooden treasure chest tucked away against a cave wall. It looks like a perfect prize for a brand new player. The monster is ecstatic, thinking its luck has finally changed for the better. It rushes the chest, already deciding that it's not going to share a single coin with its comrades. The bacteria monster grabs the edge of the lid and begins to pry it open. Its large eye is fixed on the dark gap as it grows wider. Suddenly, the bacteria freezes as something starts to stir inside the box. Two glowing red spots appear in the pitch black. A pale hand shoots out from the darkness and snatches the monster by its face. It's too fast for the creature to even react. The bacteria is yanked inside, and the heavy lid slams shut with a dull thud. The monster is gone in an instant. The wooden chest sits silent for a moment before it's suddenly enveloped in a swirl of red energy. It seems the loot was actually an ambush. A blur of movement flashes past the other bacteria as they wait nearby. One looks back, confused to find its leader has vanished into thin air. Another monster is suddenly caught in a flash of motion. It doesn't even have time to shout before something grabs it. The remaining monsters look around, sensing they're being hunted, but there's nothing but empty stone and shadows. Another bacteria is suddenly snared by glowing red threads. It lets out a muffled cry as it's dragged backward into the gloom. The monster is pulled into a dark crevice at high speed. The trap has been sprung, and the swarm is being picked off one by one. A heavy silence falls over the empty corridor, where the monsters were standing just moments ago. The survivors are spooked, wondering where everyone else went. They realize they're in serious trouble. They huddle together, scanning the ceiling and the corners. They're starting to suspect they weren't the only ones who came down here. An arrow strikes one of the monsters with explosive force, sending it flying across the cave. The remaining scouts panic as their numbers dwindle to one. The last bacteria stares into the shadows, shouting for the attacker to reveal themselves. It's the only thing it can do as it waits for the next shot. A figure watches from a ledge high above. A shadow stretches across the rock as the hunter prepares another shot. It's Milan, a level 7 archer shroom with a massive red mushroom cap. She stands with her bow drawn, but she looks incredibly nervous as she stammers an apology. Seifeng stands behind her, leaning against the cave wall. She scolds the young shroom, asking why she's busy apologizing to the enemy. Seifeng watches her with a skeptical look. She's surprised that a subordinate born from a fierce blackbug turned out to be so shy and timid. Milan tearfully apologizes again and draws her bowstring to full length. A massive surge of red energy knocks a magical arrow as she locks on to the final target. She lets the bolt fly, and it streaks through the air with a high-pitched whistle. The glowing arrow is wrapped in crackling red electricity. Milan's arrow connects with a sharp impact, sending a ripple of energy through the air. The bacteria monster is surprisingly tough, its red-spotted face twisting into a mocking grin. It warns her not to underestimate it just because it hasn't shown its true power yet. Milan doesn't hesitate. She activates her split arrow skill, a vibrant red aura flaring around her as she pulls her bowstring to full draw. Dozens of magical bolts erupt from her bow, filling the cavern with streaks of red light. The bacteria are caught in a lethal crossfire, their screams muffled by the whistle of the incoming shafts. One of the monsters takes a direct hit to its large central eye. It reels back, its body twitching from the force of the arrow. The rest of the swarm is in full retreat, scrambling over the rocks as the barrage continues. Milan's precision is terrifying as she picks them off one by one. The lead bacteria monster remains defiant. It bellows that its clan has survived for millions of years, claiming no mere physical attack can wipe them out. Milan doesn't have time for this lecturing crap. Blazing red mana surges into her palm, crackling intensely as she prepares to end the game right here. A massive arrow streaks across the cavern, trailing a long ribbon of shimmering red light in its wake. It blasts through the ranks of the remaining bacteria, detonating with a series of sharp cracks as it carves a path through the swarm. A massive pillar of fire erupts from the impact, consuming the rest of the monsters in a single violent blast. Milan jumps for joy on her ledge, ecstatic to have secured the very first victory of her life. Seifeng stays focused, leaning against the rock wall. She tells Milan to stop celebrating and confirm the kill first, knowing the dungeon is rarely so kind. The warrior girl Seifeng's gaze instantly shifts as her instincts pick up on a presence 10,000 times more powerful, heavily advancing toward them from the shadows. Milan's excitement quickly turns to fear as she looks toward the source of the noise. A massive shadow begins to stretch across the cavern floor. A massive impact shatters the floor, sending shards of stone flying everywhere as a new entity arrives. A monstrous figure stands on the outcrop, marveling at the player privileges he's just received. He looks down at the archers with a terrifying, predatory intensity. This is the Scorpion Beast King, a level 8 boss. He's a towering crimson humanoid with a single giant eye, glowing spots on his back, and a deadly scorpion tail. He boasts that he's broken through all of his previous limits. He looks down at Seifeng and Milan from his perch, his posture radiating arrogance. He knows he has the advantage in this fight. Seifeng realizes Milan is outmatched and orders her to fall back and provide cover while she takes the front line. Milan tearfully apologizes for being a burden as she scrambles away. The Scorpion Beast King doesn't give them time to prepare. He leaps from the outcrop, descending toward them like a red bolt of lightning. He slams into the ground with a deafening roar, the impact shattering the surrounding stone and sending a shockwave through the room. Seifeng reacts instantly, firing a flurry of arrows to pin him down and buy Milan time to get into position. The monster moves with blurred speed, swatting the arrows aside as if they were nothing more than insects. He doesn't even slow down as he closes the distance. One arrow manages to graze his face, nearly hitting his massive central eye. He barely even flinches as the shaft zips past. Milan fires an explosive shot that detonates against him in a massive burst of flame. He steps out of the smoke completely unharmed, mocking the attack for being too weak to scratch him. He scoffs at the weak attacks, his voice echoing through the cave. The explosion didn't even leave a singe on his crimson hide. Milan is horrified, her eyes wide as her best attack is dismissed so easily. She can't believe her explosive arrow was deflected without a second thought. Seifeng stays calm, knowing that forcing him to turn his head was exactly the opening she needed for her next move. She fires 3 specialized arrows, each one connected to a glowing red thread of mycelium. The shafts arc through the air, trailing the light behind them. The Scorpion Beast King laughs, convinced the archers have lost their minds from his kingly aura. He mocks them for missing 3 shots in a row as he prepares to charge. He suddenly stops mid-motion, a confused grunt escaping him. Something is holding him back from reaching his targets. He looks down and sees the glowing red threads wrapped tightly around his arm. He realizes the missed shots were a calculated trap to ensnare him. The arrows have anchored themselves into the cavern walls, using the mycelium network to bind the monster in place. He's trapped in a web of glowing light. He's unimpressed by the trap. He thinks he can snap these flimsy threads with a simple flex of his muscles as he prepares to break free. Just as he tries to forcefully break free, a blazing red energy begins to flash violently around his body. Seifeng instantly triggers her severe proliferation infection skill, forcing the guy to double over in agony. Seifeng looks coldly at the bacteria monster twisting in pain, her gaze completely unwavering as she calmly draws her bow to deliver the finishing blow. As the deadly toxin sweeps through, the monster completely collapses to the ground. Realizing the perfect opportunity has arrived, she turns to the 2 guards, ordering them to quickly finish it off. A massive mushroom warrior rises behind the Scorpion Beast King, its yellow eyes glowing as it prepares to strike with its full weight. A sharp red arc tears through the air as a counterattack is launched with blinding speed. The light cuts across the panel in a lethal curve. Seifeng and Milan look on, their faces pale with shock as their desperate last stand fails. The battle has taken a dark turn, leaving them defenseless against the beast. Close up from behind, the greatsword is about to crash down on the Scorpion Beast King's head but suddenly freezes midair, completely losing all its momentum. A massive mushroom-headed warrior stands motionless, his heavy black and pink sword held mid-swing. A bubble containing a question mark and exclamation mark hovers over the scene as the battleground grinds to a halt. A text box questions why the mushroom guard isn't attacking and why he has suddenly frozen in place. The Scorpion Beast King's giant red eye narrows, its 3 pupils pulsing as he lets out a sharp, mocking laugh. His segmented tail lashes out, slicing through a glowing red mycelial thread. He explains that he began infecting the network the moment he was near his limit, turning their own connections against them. A close-up shows the infection blooming like a small explosion on the guard's darkened leg. The monster gloats that his new puppet no longer listens to any commands but his own. The Scorpion Beast King throws his head back and roars, demanding that everyone on the network get infected together. A wave of yellow energy begins infiltrating Seifeng's system, leaving her completely bewildered. Swarms of bacteria spores drift through the cave, their tiny red eyes and sharp teeth visible as they cackle in the dark. Far from the front lines, Yang Jun's eyes glow a piercing red. He orders all his mushroom subordinates to disconnect from the network and stay offline until he arrives. Seifeng grits her teeth and swings her hand, a pink arc of energy severing the glowing fungal thread connected to her chest. Milan mimics the action, her small blade cutting through the red mycelium as she tries to isolate herself from the spreading infection. Seifeng looks at her hands, her brow furrowed as she realizes the disconnect wasn't fast enough to stop the bacteria. She collapses to her knees, blood spattering the ground as a system warning for severe proliferation infection appears above her head. Milan lies motionless on the cavern floor, her body covered in the same glowing, infectious energy as she trembles. The scorpion beast king leaps from the ceiling, his massive form descending toward the helpless archers as he laughs at their struggle. He lands with a heavy thud, his clawed hand glowing with heat. He mocks them, revealing that his bacteria are airborne and that their attempt to go offline was useless. A tight close-up of his central eye shows the three pupils pulsing with malevolent light as he prepares to strike. A sudden blur of movement from below catches him off guard. Yang Jun delivers a powerful upward kick that cuts through the air with a whistle. The force of the strike travels all the way to the cave's ceiling, shattering the stone and causing debris to rain down. Yang Jun stands in the dust beside the kneeling Seifeng. She apologizes for being infected, but he calmly takes the blame and tells her to fall back with the others. The scorpion beast king stands amidst the falling rubble, his back turned to the newcomer as he absorbs the impact. The monster turns his head slightly, his giant eyes scanning the man who just interrupted him. He asks if Yang Jun is the leader of the group. Yang Jun stands with his back to the viewer, his silhouette firm against the dark cave. He doesn't offer a direct answer, his focus entirely on the threat ahead. The scorpion beast king launches himself into a high, vertical kick that seems to split the air with its power. Yang Gu cleanly blocks that colossal leg with just the axe in his hand, the impact unleashing a shockwave that cracks the floor beneath his feet. A system message announces that one subordinate has retreated from the battlefield, granting Yang Jun a 10% boost to all his stats. Yang Jun's hand begins to crackle with an intense, pink lightning-like energy as he readies his own strike. His eyes are fixed on the monster's face. An explosion of red and orange fire erupts at the point of impact, completely filling the panel with light and heat. A close-up of Yang Jun's eye shows a cold, unwavering focus as he stares down his opponent through the smoke. The scorpion beast king laughs as he blocks a blow, unaware that a second subordinate's retreat has just pushed Yang Jun's stat boost to 20%. Yang Jun lets out a short grunt of exertion, his expression remaining grim and determined as the battle continues. He unleashes a 1,000-pound punch straight to the scorpion beast king's face, but it seems the villain saw the attack coming. He raises his hand, cleanly catching Yang Jun's punch and immediately starts trash-talking. However, the terrifying force of the punch sends the scorpion beast king flying backward, crashing heavily into the dungeon wall. The ground shatters under the weight of the attack. The scorpion beast king struggles to understand why the human's strikes are becoming progressively heavier and more difficult to block. Yang Jun's eyes glow a fierce red as he hovers in the air, his body a dark shape against the chaos of the cavern. He unleashes a rapid series of crisscrossing red energy slashes that carve into the scorpion beast king's body, lighting up the dark cave. Yang Jun isn't slowing down. He's going to keep attacking until the system sends a kill notification. But he realizes the virus's toxin is rapidly corroding his body. He drops to his knees and coughs up blood. The bacteria king towers over him, laughing about how close combat only speeds up the infection. He mocks the kid for almost killing him, but he's still got plenty of life left. The beast activates parasitic bacteria healing, his wounds closing up in seconds. He announces that the real fight is just beginning. A hammer-like kick slams straight into Yang Jun's chest. Yang Jun is sent flying backward as a massive shockwave tears through the ground. But he instantly regains his balance, sliding across the ground and resetting his weapon for a counterattack. The monster focuses his orange-spotted eyes on his target. A sudden burst of pressure kicks up a wall of debris. Grime covers Yang Jun's face, but in the blink of an eye, the monster appears right behind him. The Bacteria King unleashes a flurry of tetanus blades. Pink energy slices right through Yang Jun, spraying blood into the air. The beast relentlessly unleashes a flurry of golden bacillus blades, sweeping across the entire area. A massive impact slams the boy into the cavern wall. The Bacteria King lunges in for the kill, shouting that this is his final strike. A heavy shockwave ripples out as the blow connects. The monster mocks his stubbornness, telling him to just give in and suffer. Yang Jun just stares back, asking him what bacteria he's talking about. The boss freezes. The infection on the boy has completely vanished. Yang Jun lunges forward, leaving the beast confused and wide open. With his subordinates gone, his stats jump by 60% as his new barrier skin activates. The boss's claws scrape harmlessly against the invisible barrier around Yang Jun's head. Yang Jun swings his weapon with everything he's got, screaming about a little something called antibiotics. The strike sends the boss reeling back, coughing up orange fluid in pure shock. Yang Jun doesn't hold back and hurls his weapon straight at the beast. The axe flies through the air and embeds itself deep into the beast's shoulder. Total panic finally sets in as the boss realizes he's lost. Yang Jun snares him with a tether, yanking him back across the ground. The monster is dragged through the dirt like a ragdoll. Flashback to a day ago in the Great Cemetery. Yang Jun was asking Firehammer about something special. Firehammer explains that black rot stones are soaked in antibiotics discarded by high-level players. What players consider useless trash is exactly the weapon Yang Jun was looking for. He tells the craftsman to extract every last bit of it. Back in the present, Yang Jun infuses his weapon with a concentrated medicine. He unleashes all his strength into an antibiotic strike, as a massive pillar of light engulfs the beast. The ground shatters into a million pieces under the weight of the blast. The Bacteria King is driven deep into the earth by the overwhelming force. A massive crater is all that's left of the battlefield. The monster lies at the center, a gaping hole in his chest as his body starts to turn to dust. The Bacteria King leans against the wall, gasping that physical attacks are useless as long as his bacteria can regenerate. A blinding burst of energy erupts right in front of him. His eye goes wide as the system suppresses his ability to heal. White, bubbly foam starts consuming his body while he curses his luck. A final shockwave rippling through the air marks the end of the monster. A system message pops up. Yang Jun and his team have hit level 8, picking up some powerful new racial skills. Even the archers get a boost with new net-casting arrows to trap their enemies. Back at the garden base, bioluminescent mushrooms have started to bloom everywhere. Seifeng admires the beautiful growth, clearly impressed by the new garden. Yang Jun relaxes in a mushroom chair, explaining that the stone residue makes for a perfect fertilizer. Firehammer stomps in with a massive steaming pot, announcing that it's finally time for a meal. The whole squad gathers around the table to enjoy what Yang Jun calls a staff meal. Milan looks up from under her mushroom cap, completely confused by the human term. Yang Jun realizes it's human world slang and tries to explain that it just means free food for the workers. Firehammer looks at the mushroom ingredients and concludes that since they're the staff, they must be eating themselves. Milan just keeps eating, while Yang Jun tries to figure out how to explain the literal meaning. High above, a shadowy figure in a purple-lined cloak watches them from the ledge. The admin sits silently, overlooking the massive crater left behind by the battle. He scoffs at the bacteria's failure and starts thinking about who he can use as cannon fodder next. A cold purple light glints in his eyes as he spots something strange in the pit. He's confused by a presence that feels exactly like the carrion bugs he thought were all dead. A sudden flare of red light pulses from the center of the crater. A massive, fleshy structure with a glowing red core begins to burst through the ground. The admin stands before the monstrosity as it towers over the rubble. The system identifies it as a rot-forged burrower star, a massive mushroom grown from the corpses of his own bugs. The shadowy figure is left reeling, demanding to know where this thing came from. Yang Jun steps out from behind the massive structure, looking like he's ready for a chat. He looks the admin dead in the eye and asks if he's the one who keeps dumping players into his dungeon. The admin narrows his eyes, identifying the boy as nothing more than a glitch in his system. He opens a magic book, deciding he's going to personally delete this bug once and for all. He unleashes a massive admin beam, a pillar of purple energy designed to erase his target. A violent vortex of purple energy swirls around the point of impact. The ground shatters as the beam hits, but something isn't right. The admin's eyes go wide with shock as he feels his own attack being pushed back. A massive shadowy appendage lashes out from the center of the blast. The force slams the admin into the cavern wall, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Panic starts to set in as the spirit realizes this bug is way beyond his pay grade. Before he can request higher authority, Yang Jun lunges forward and snatches the book right out of his hand. Yang Jun casually flips through the book while the admin stands there, paralyzed with shock. The shadowy figure loses his cool and lunges forward, screaming for the boy to give it back. A heavy impact shakes the cavern, throwing the admin off balance. Yang Jun brings his leg down in a crushing overhead smash, ready to end the argument once and for all. The admin lies broken in the center of the crater, groaning in pain after the devastating attack. Yang Jun picks up the book he snatched, wondering just how important this little prize really is. The battered spirit tries to bargain, refusing to speak unless he gets a guarantee of safety. Yang Jun just laughs, pointing out that the title Book of Admin Privileges is written in plain sight on the cover. Seeing his leverage is gone, the admin's expression shifts from arrogance to pure terror. He doesn't stick around to argue, vanishing into a trail of black smoke and fleeing into the depths of the cavern. Yang Jun watches the shadowy essence bolt away, surprised that a high-end mighty admin would actually cut and run. The coward's voice echoes through the tunnels, promising to return with an army to wipe out Yang Jun's entire clan. Suddenly, a massive shockwave rocks the ground where the admin's presence was just lingering. A voice screams out in shock as an unexpected ambush tears through the shadows. Milan descends from the ceiling like a silent predator, her eyes fixed on the target below. The Mushroom Squad doesn't give him a second to breathe, as the blacksmith unleashes a powerful ignite spell that sets the air ablaze. A massive pillar of flame erupts, consuming the last traces of the admin's essence. The spirit's desperate pleas for a conversation are drowned out by the roar of the inferno. The explosion settles, leaving nothing but scorched earth and a lingering scent of ozone. Milan activates her skirt parachute glide, drifting down to the ground with practiced grace. Milan looks at the scorched ground as Yang Jun wonders if the admin really thought they would just talk. She apologizes to Yang Jun for acting too quickly, but he just smiles, knowing the admin was useless anyway. Yang Jun turns his attention back to the privilege book, asking Seifeng if it actually has any practical uses. He explains that the book allows them to track everyone in the dungeon and kick out anyone breaking the rules. But the real kicker is that it can grant certain NPC characters the same status as players. This means they would no longer be restricted to their zones and could finally mine resources and open chests. Seifeng realizes they could have left their territory ages ago if they'd only had this power sooner. However, Yang Jun's smile fades as he realizes the book has his entire group registered as bugs. Seifeng worries that as long as they are flagged this way, the system will never stop sending hunters to fix them. Suddenly, the book starts vibrating with an incoming communication request from another administrator. Seifeng panics, fearing their cover is blown, but Yang Jun remains calm and tells her to answer the call. A purple hologram flickers to life, revealing the stern face of a much higher-ranking system overseer. The high-level admin bellows, "You!" As soon as the connection is established, his eyes glowing with rage. The shadowy figure looms over them through the hologram, radiating an aura of absolute authority. He demands to know why it took so long to answer, and Yang Jun, using a clever disguise, claims he was busy with a bug. The overseer scolds him for being slow, threatening to leave him at the bottom level forever if he doesn't shape up. Yang Jun maintains his act, laughing off the insults and pretending to be the lowly admin the overseer expects. The high-ranking spirit seems almost impressed, nodding that the lazy worker is finally taking some initiative. He orders Yang Jun to investigate some anomalous data discovered on the third level from the bottom. The hologram fades away, and Yang Jun finally drops the facade, his expression turning grim. Seifeng is stunned that the mycelium disguise actually worked, but she's curious if they're really heading to the third level. Yang Jun isn't in any rush to be cannon fodder. He decides to spread his mycelial network to scout the area first. As they prepare to move, Seifeng suddenly realizes that one member of their team is missing. They search the immediate area, but Milan is nowhere to be found, and she's completely disappeared from the network. Panicked, Yang Jun reaches out through his link to find his scout shroom, demanding to know where Milan went. The tiny, sweating scout shroom reports in from the end of the level, urging his boss to come see something disturbing. Yang Jun and Seifeng arrive at the dark, jagged mouth of a massive cavern, looking for any sign of their missing comrade. Looking up at the walls caked in dark residue, Yang Jun asks if this is where Milan's trail went cold. The scout shroom confirms that her spores simply vanished here, and any attempt to spread mycelium higher is immediately cut off. Yang Jun inspects the thick, gnarled roots protruding from the cavern walls, nodding that they have been completely gnawed to pieces by something with a voracious appetite. Realizing the nature of the culprit, Yang Jun looks down at the ground, suspecting that whatever feeds on wood in this manner must be a specific type of pest. The ground is littered with debris and strange, deep bite marks that suggest a massive infestation. Yang Jun concludes that termites are behind the destruction and declares they have no choice but to head to sub-level 3 to rescue Milan. Seifeng quickly interjects, blocking his path and telling him that he cannot be the one to go. She explains that since the mycelium network cannot reach the upper levels, they would have no intel, making a direct assault by the leader too risky. Seifeng looks at him firmly, reminding him that he is their leader and their greatest asset. If he falls, they will have no backup plan left. She volunteers to go herself, promising to transmit vital intelligence back to him once she finds an opening. Yang Jun eventually relents, telling her to stay safe and promising that he will be ready to provide reinforcements the moment she needs them. However, he worries that using mycelium sprint might be too flashy and draw the attention of the termites. Seifeng reassures him, nodding that termites are practically blind. Yang Jun considers her words but remains cautious, knowing that termites have other powerful sensory abilities. He begins to outline a more subtle plan. High above, a worker termite crawls along a gnawed root, its antennae twitching as it searches for food. The termite's mandibles click as it encounters a strange, purple mushroom growth nestled against the wood. It immediately reacts to a sudden release of pheromones, its primitive mind identifying the mushroom as a valuable find. The termite begins to scurry back toward its nest, eager to deliver the prize to the colony. In a nearby interface, the complex pheromone signals transmitted between the insects are automatically translated into understandable text. Inside a tunnel teeming with insects, a worker termite watches its comrade carry the mushroom, feeling a pang of jealousy that someone else found a new species first. Another termite grumbles inwardly, frustrated that the lucky find will allow the other worker to claim all the credit and boss everyone around from now on. The mushroom being carried is actually a termite mushroom subordinate working for Yang Jun, marveling at how perfectly the leader's strategy worked to get him inside. He chuckles to himself as he is carried deeper into the nest, pleased that the worker termites simply brought him in themselves. Once he is well inside enemy territory, the subordinate begins to secretly lay down a strand of glowing mycelium. A nearby termite tastes the essence of the mycelium and finds it absolutely delicious, completely unaware of the trap being set. Worker termites scurry through the tunnels, busy with their mindless routines. Yang Gu stays buried in the sawdust, keeping his purple mushroom disguise perfectly still. He's starting to realize why he hasn't heard a peep from Milan. Normal soldier termite patrol the area, watching over the valuable fungus. A sudden crash from above sends debris, and elite guards flying everywhere. An ant officer tells a worker to keep a close eye on a new mushroom strain he found. Once it sprouts, it'll be food for the higher-ups. More dirt and dust rain down, nearly burying Yang-gu completely. Looking around, he figures out this sawdust and spore mix is where the termites grow their food. It's a literal fungus garden. A small eye peeks out from a nearby cap. A tiny voice tells him not to worry. Another sentient mushroom is hiding right next to him in the pile. The little guy introduces himself as Little Fur and explains that the worker termite only care about the spore balls. Yang-gu asks if he's seen a little mushroom girl with a red spotted cap. Little Fur shakes his head. He hasn't seen anyone like that. Yang-gu explains that she's a bit clueless and always apologizing for everything. That gets his attention. Little Fur suddenly remembers a mushroom just like that. He says they took her as a tribute to be offered to the termite king and queen. Yang-gu doesn't waste a second and starts climbing out. Little Fur is confused. Yang-gu tells him he's going to find her and asks if he's coming. Little Fur isn't interested in a suicide mission. He knows sentient mushrooms like them are destined to be eaten eventually. He decides it's better to stay put and wait for the end. He figures staying still might keep him alive a little longer than running into a soldier ant's mandibles. The area suddenly erupts in a massive explosion of rock and dust. Little Fur stares up at the giant hole in the ceiling, wondering what just happened. A shadow begins to climb down through the debris. A familiar cap emerges from the dust cloud. Little Fur is stunned, his mouth hanging open. Every soldier ant guarding the fungus garden has been slaughtered. Purple blood is splattered everywhere. Little Fur can't believe a single mushroom could wipe out a whole squad of elites. Seifeng drops into the garden, looking for a target. Deep in the nest, a soldier ant tells a bound-up Milan it's time to meet the termite king. The ant stops and looks back, sensing someone's presence. Purple energy sparks fly as the guard turns to confront the intruder. Seifeng is already right on top of him. A quick flash of steel cuts through the air. The ant is sliced clean in half before it can even react. Seifeng lands gracefully, her blade still glowing. Milan is thrilled to see her captain, her eyes lighting up with relief. Seifeng quickly slashes through the purple energy bindings. Finally free, Milan starts to thank her for the rescue. But Seifeng just gives her a firm bop on the head instead. She scolds Milan for being an idiot and getting caught so easily. The score isn't settled yet. The two of them start making a run for it through the complex tunnels. Milan wonders how they'll get past the massive swarms of termite, but Seifeng says their leader is already coming to extract them. Seifeng's eyes narrow as she picks up a shift in the air. She skids to a halt, sensing something dangerous lurking just around the corner. The little mushroom girl couldn't brake in time and slammed right into Seifeng. Milan is starting to panic, but Seifeng stays calm. She can feel the bloodlust radiating from up ahead. It's a full-blown ambush. Looking up, the entire vertical shaft is crawling with soldier termite ready to drop. From the termite perspective, the two intruders are just easy prey trapped at the bottom of the pit. The captain gives the order to tear her to pieces the second she tries to poke her head out. The trap is set, and the swarm is just waiting for the signal to strike. Suddenly, a tiny purple mushroom pops out from the side of the tunnel. The ant captain is totally thrown off. He was expecting the girl with the bun, not some random little pipsqueak. Before he can even blink, the little guy hurls a rock, the ultimate surekill flying stone. It dinks right off the captain's head, doing absolutely zero damage. Talk about a free shell polish. The little mushroom just stands there, totally unfazed by the massive beast in front of him. The captain loses it. He lunges at the little guy, furious that such a tiny thing would dare to attack him. He screams for his boys to tear the pipsqueak to shreds. While the termite are distracted, Seifeng and Milan make their move. Seifeng tells Milan the decoy shroom did its job. The whole ambush has been lured away. Milan is worried about the extraction point being so far, but Seifeng reassures her. The chief is already digging them an escape route. Seifeng digs her heels in as they reach the next corridor. Her sharp eyes are locked onto the path ahead, staying on high alert. "Watch out!" she yells as a massive shadow drops from the ceiling. The termite captain crashes down, but Seifeng is already mid-swing with her blades. The evolved termite lunges with incredible speed, mandibles snapping. The two forces collide in a shower of sparks and flying rock. Seifeng holds her ground, her blades locking against the massive termite's head. Milan screams for her captain, terrified by the sheer power of the monster. Seifeng tells her not to worry. The plan comes first. Milan needs to fall back and finish her part of the mission. Milan turns and runs, apologizing as usual but knowing she has to trust her captain to hold the line. The clash continues, neither side giving an inch as metal grinds against chitin. Seifeng's expression is rock solid. She isn't backing down even a single step. She kicks off the wall, using her agility to create some distance. She lands in a low crouch, eyes narrowed at the massive evolved ant. The captain admits she's not bad for taking a direct hit, but he mocks her, saying another ambush is already waiting for Milan. Seifeng is stunned. She didn't expect a termite to be able to speak the common tongue. This guy has clearly evolved beyond the rest. She doesn't let it shake her. She's already figured out exactly where his heavy hitters are stationed. She tells him straight up that she has complete faith in Milan. A handful of low-level troops won't be enough to stop her. The captain is baffled when he sees Milan firing arrows at the wall instead of the termite. From a distance, Milan takes aim with her bow. She lets the shot fly with perfect precision. The arrow whistles through the tunnel, heading straight for its target. Milan remembers the chief's lesson about exploiting the natural instincts of the termite colony. The arrow releases a massive cloud of mycelium bait. Since termites can't resist it, the whole swarm is about to go into a frantic feeding frenzy. The plan works perfectly as they lure the termite out, letting them feast on the delicious mycelium to their heart's content. The termite go wild for the stuff, completely ignoring the danger even as one of their own tries to warn them it's a trap. The warnings fall on deaf ears. Greed has completely taken over the swarm. The scene turns into absolute chaos, with termite literally shoving food into each other's mouths in a frantic frenzy. Even the higher-ranking termite can't resist, demanding to be fed as the lure takes full effect. Milan watches from a distance as her plan unfolds exactly as she hoped. She's impressed by her own work. Using this trick to clear the path was a brilliant move by her captain. Down in the tunnels, the infighting begins as the termites start biting each other over the precious bait. The soldier termite captain is absolutely fuming. He can't believe a few tiny mushrooms managed to turn his unified colony against itself. "Unforgivable," he screams, charging at Seifeng with everything he's got. Seifeng reacts with lightning speed, her movements a blur as she prepares to counter. An arrow dinks off the captain's head, but it barely leaves a scratch. The captain laughs at her, boasting that her little arrows are useless unless she can find a gap in his heavy armor. He mocks her, claiming a direct assault won't even scratch him. Seifeng just stares him down. Suddenly, there's a flash of pink light as Seifeng prepares a new move. The captain is stunned. She's vanished right before his eyes. "Mycelial flash step," she whispers. Seifeng reappears, her movements so fast they look like red streaks through the air. She unleashes a barrage of strikes, the captain barely able to keep up with her speed. More arrows slam into his shell, sending sparks flying as they struggle to find purchase. The captain is confused as a final arrow hits him in the neck, though it still doesn't pierce through. He laughs it off, asking if she really thought 3 arrows would make a difference if one couldn't get through. He's confident in his torso plating. Seifeng doesn't say a word, her eyes glowing with intensity as she charges up for the real attack. The captain thinks she's just getting desperate and swinging blindly, then he sees it. "A blade," he gasps. A massive surge of mycelial energy erupts, bathing the tunnel in a pink glow. The previous arrows were just trackers for this move, the mycelial lunge. Seifeng strikes with a massive, concentrated blow that rips right through the captain's heavy defenses. Seifeng stands her ground in the dimly lit tunnel, her eyes locked on the massive shadow looming ahead. A sudden, violent tremor shakes the cavern walls as a heavy blow slams into the nearby rock. The impact is immense, shattering the stone and sending a wave of jagged debris flying through the air. Seifeng is thrown backward by the force, her body tumbling uncontrollably through the darkness of the passage. From the thick cloud of dust, a dark, menacing silhouette slowly begins to take shape. The Termite Legion commander emerges, a massive trapjaw soldier ant radiating a toxic purple aura. He's not impressed with his troops' performance, barking at them to get back into position immediately. The commander channels a surge of dark energy, his presence warping the very air around him. Seifeng looks up, her expression turning grim as the ground beneath her begins to vibrate with a rhythmic thunder. A literal wall of soldier ants comes charging down the corridor, their mandibles clicking in a deafening frenzy. Suddenly, a glowing magical arrow streaks through the chaos, cutting a path through the smoke. It slams right into the commander's reinforced head, bursting into a brilliant flash of pink light. A powerful shockwave ripples outward, tossing the lesser termites aside like dry leaves in a storm. Seifeng seizes the opening and shouts a command, her hand glowing with a fierce red intensity. But just then, the commander lunges forward, interrupting her skill as his blade cuts through the air with the heat of a furnace. The commander continues the assault with his mandible whip, swinging those massive pincers at a terrifying speed. Seifeng catches the blow on her blade, but the sheer force of the impact sends sparks flying across the tunnel. The floor beneath her feet shatters as she struggles to hold her position against the overwhelming weight. He doesn't let up, swinging those massive pincers like a pair of giant, jagged scythes. She blurs in a dash, narrowly avoiding a horizontal sweep that would have cut her in half. The commander sneers, taunting her as he easily reads through Seifeng's every move. Sparks fly with every exchange, his armored form moving with a grace that belies his massive size. Seifeng grits her teeth, her arms beginning to go numb from the continuous heavy impacts. He winds up for another devastating strike, his glowing eyes fixed on his prey. She manages to block him once more, but the incredible force nearly knocks her sword from her hand. He shoves her back, her boots scraping deep ruts into the hard stone floor. The commander is done playing and starts to charge his ultimate move, his mandibles locking together. Seifeng watches him carefully, a flashback of Yang Jun's warning about these termites flashing through her mind. Yang Jun had explained how some termites use their mandibles like high-tension springs to build up energy. When they finally snap past each other, they release a massive amount of destructive elastic potential energy. It's a biological mousetrap, and the trigger has just been pulled. He unleashes the trapjaw smash, the air itself screaming as his mandibles fire in an instant. The strike hits with the force of a falling mountain, sending Seifeng hurtling through the cavern. A massive explosion of dust and pulverized rock erupts as she's buried under the rubble. The impact point is completely decimated, leaving nothing but a smoking crater in the center of the tunnel. A dark hole in the ceiling marks where the guards previously dropped in to assist. Through the thick haze, another arrow streaks through the air, cutting a path toward the commander. It pings harmlessly off his reinforced chitin, much to his arrogant amusement. Seifeng emerges from the dust, drawing her bowstring tight as she prepares for another desperate shot. The commander actually gives her a nod of respect for her stubborn tenacity in the face of death. But respect doesn't mean mercy, and he orders the entire legion to swarm her and finish the job. An entire charges forward, his heavy legs thumping against the cavern floor as he closes the gap. Seifeng stares up in shock as the general's massive pincers loom over her, ready to snap her in two. She's coughing up blood and reaching her limit, but a system notification suddenly flashes. The network is back. The commander doesn't care, lunging forward with his massive head to finish the job once and for all. Out of nowhere, a shroom guard drops from a hole in the ceiling, brandishing a heavy stone mace. The Termite Legion commander is stunned, his eyes wide as he realizes his fortress isn't as secure as he thought. An entire squad of guards follows, descending on the termites and swinging their blunt weapons with lethal force. One guard brings his club down hard, sending an armored termite flying back into the darkness. The fungal reinforcements start cracking shells left and right, purple ichor splashing across the cavern walls. The commander is losing it, wondering how they bypassed his perimeter soldiers without anyone sounding the alarm. He glares at the newcomers, his mandibles clicking as he tries to make sense of the sudden ambush. Amidst the chaos, Seifeng is bathed in a pink glow as she finally hears a familiar voice in her head. Yang Jun pops up on the network, casually standing on a dead ant while he finishes clearing the perimeter. He tells her she did a great job holding them off, as her fight gave him all the tactical data he needed. While they were disconnected, he had Firehammer forged specialized clubs to bypass the termites' thick armor. Now he's syncing up all the experience points he earned, so Seifeng can finally hit her next level. He tells her to check her inventory, because Firehammer didn't just stop at making clubs for the guards. A pillar of light surrounds Seifeng as the level up kicks in, her wounds closing instantly as her power surges. The shroom guards stand their ground, their glowing eyes fixed on the enemy while the light intensifies. A system chime confirms the level up to 9, and Seifeng's form begins to shift within the magical glow. She emerges transformed, now wearing a sleek set of futuristic Veil glider armor. The system details the new gear, which uses spore-powered boosts to give her insane bursts of speed. She's also loaded up with armor-piercing arrows and a devastating heavy spike skill for close-quarters combat. The mushroom guards don't waste a second and immediately dive back into the fight. With a single swing of the club, the soldier termite's head goes tumbling and rolls right to the feet of the Termite Legion commander. Looking down from above, the cavern is a mess of broken chitin as the guards systematically wipe out the swarm. The Termite Legion commander is furious, shouting that she's only winning because she called for backup like a coward. Seifeng just looks at him calmly, pointing out that his entire legion is losing to just 3 of her guards. Enraged, the commander lunges one more time, swearing that no amount of armor will save her from him. But the mushroom guard reacts in a flash, swinging his club to block the attack. His lunge is powerful, but the surrounding guards are so disciplined that they completely throw him off his rhythm. He slams into the ground, then leaps into the air to change his plan. The commander screams in frustration, unable to fathom why these puny mushrooms are so stubborn. Seifeng draws her new bow, a red energy arrow forming as she locks onto the general's weak point. He laughs it off, claiming his head armor is too thick for any arrow to ever hope of piercing. A massive flash of light fills the room as her shot connects, creating a violent explosion of energy. The commander is sent flying into the air, spinning uncontrollably as he tumbles backward. His body is sent flying like a cannonball, ricocheting repeatedly against the cavern walls. After a long while, his body finally comes to a halt, the force of the impact pinning him deep inside a fresh crater. He stares down in horror as he realizes the arrow has punched straight through his unbreakable skull. Sparks fly as he attempts to rip the arrow out with his pincers. A close-up reveals a sharp, black object firmly embedded in the commander's armor. With a cry of Veil Dash, Seifeng activates her high-speed movement skill, her form becoming a blur of pink energy. The soldier ant captain is pinned against the rock wall, unable to react as Seifeng sweeps past him like a phantom. 2 powerful skills collide, Seifeng's meteor-heavy spike against the commander's desperate trapjaw smash. The resulting impact creates a violent explosion of light and sparks, illuminating the dark tunnel. A concentrated beam of energy tears through the air, completely overwhelming the termite general's defenses. The force of the attack gouges a deep, glowing trench into the cavern floor as it dissipates. The soldier ant captain collapses, his once impenetrable armor now shattered and smoking from the heat. Ichor leaks from the grievous wounds on his head, his mandibles twitching as the last of his strength fades. A system notification confirms the kill. Trapjaw termite has been eliminated. Seifeng stands victoriously over her fallen foe. She turns her gaze back toward the tunnel, her expression calm despite the intensity of the fight she just finished. Yang Jun, back in his stout mushroom form, hops over to congratulate her on her growing strength. Seifeng is surprised to see Yang Jun change forms, but he casually explains that he was just bored with his human appearance. Their moment of rest is cut short by a distant boom. Yang Jun notes the shroom soldiers are closing in on the queen. Deep in the nest, a pyroblast shroom unleashes a gout of flame, incinerating a cluster of termite soldiers. Beside it, an electro shroom crackles with blue lightning, zapping everything that dares to crawl near it. Seifeng is impressed to see the elemental mushrooms back in action, having thought they were lost. Yang Jun explains he can regrow them from spores, and that his higher level has unlocked more soldier slots. The fungal army marches deeper into the hive, their presence signaled by rising plumes of smoke and spores. Yang Jun suddenly stops, his dark eyes narrowing as he detects an overwhelming bloodlust emanating from the darkness ahead. They reach a massive cavern entrance where several shroom guards stand ready, blocked by a group of formidable foes. A heavy, armored foot slams into the ground, the sound echoing through the chamber like a funeral bell. 3 elite termite officers emerge from the gloom, General Twisting Termite and his 2 deadly vice-generals. Vice-General Explosive Termite, brandishing a strange weapon, declares that all intruders will be executed. Yang Jun warns his team to stay on high alert, sensing that these enemies are far more dangerous than the ones before. The explosive termite pulls back a projectile, the glowing green orb vibrating with volatile chemical energy. He begins to swing his weapon in a wide arc, building momentum for a devastating area of effect attack. Yang Jun watches closely, noting that the termite's starting stance is remarkably similar to the commander they just defeated. With a sharp whistle, the vice-general launches the slingshot toxic bomb directly at the fungal group. Yang Jun reacts instantly, shouting mycelial interception net, as he spreads his fungal threads wide. A glowing red grid of mycelium stretches across the tunnel, catching the toxic projectile midair. The bomb is trapped, but its momentum causes the net to strain as the chemical core begins to destabilize. A massive green explosion rocks the cavern, bathing everything in a sickly, corrosive light. One of the shroom soldiers is caught in the heart of the flash, its form glowing momentarily before the fire consumes it. The explosion is massive, sending shockwaves and splatters of acid in every direction. Thick green smoke fills the corridor, obscuring the view and making it difficult for the survivors to breathe. A shroom guard is thrown backward by the concussive force, his armor sizzling from the acidic residue. The rest of the squad is scattered across the tunnel, struggling to recover from the unexpected chemical strike. As the smoke clears, Yang Jun looks out with a grim expression, realizing he was only able to save one of his guards. The walls are coated in steaming, green venom that continues to eat away at the rock even after the blast. Yang Jun is frustrated. Despite his quick reaction, the wide area splash was enough to wipe out 2 of his soldiers instantly. Yang Jun assesses the dire situation, noting that while his mushroom guards have high physical defense, their poison resistance is alarmingly low. The corrosive green mist continues to swirl around them, a constant threat to their stability. Suddenly, a blur of motion cuts through the smog as an elite termite officer strikes again. The vice-general swings his segmented limb with the precision of a predator, aiming straight for Yang Jun's position. A powerful shockwave erupts as the attack finds its mark, kicking up a fresh cloud of dust and debris. With a cruel grin, the termite follows up with a lethal scythe-like swipe, his movements fueled by insectoid speed. One down, the officer gloats, his eyes already searching the smoke for his next victim. Next! But as the dust settles, Yang Jun remains standing, his hardened hands having completely blocked the termite's onslaught. Before he can even load, a massive, muscular hand snatches the termite's weaponized limb right out of the air. Firehammer has arrived on the scene, his tattooed chest heaving as he halts the enemy's momentum with sheer brute force. The termite general is frozen in shock, unable to believe that a mere fungal creature could catch his snap attack so effortlessly. With a stern expression beneath his red mushroom cap, Firehammer simply identifies himself as just a blacksmith. Without looking back, the stocky warrior tells his leader to head for the queen's chamber, promising to handle the current mess. Yang Jun, in his small mushroom form, gives a determined thumbs up, placing his full trust in his companion's skills. With a sudden burst of speed, the tiny monarch leaves the battlefield, his form becoming a streak of red and white. He weaves through the tunnel, his focus entirely on reaching the heart of the colony before any more damage can be done. The termite officer mocks the situation, finding it absurd that such a shorty could be the boss of someone as powerful as Firehammer. Firehammer's eyes glow with a menacing pink light as he warns the insect to watch its mouth, or he'll turn its shell into a shield. "Say Feng, Firehammer, I'll leave this to you," Yang Jun shouts as he disappears into the darkness. "I'm going straight for the queen." Say Feng looks on with a confident smirk, her pointed ears twitching as she prepares to back up the muscular blacksmith. Firehammer wastes no more time on words, delivering a bone-shattering punch that sends a shockwave through the termite's frame. He follows up with a flurry of strikes, his fists moving with a disciplined rhythm that belies his blacksmithing origins. Each hit lands with a heavy thud, cracking the termite's reinforced carapace and sending shards of chitin flying. Reeling from the assault, the termite officer realizes with horror that the mushrooms are systematically targeting the weak points in his flank armor. Firehammer attacks, quickly realizing his speed is too slow compared to this termite. The quick termite leaps away to create distance, then launches a white object toward the blacksmith. The blacksmith's feet are stuck in that pool of white slime. The blacksmith is caught off guard by the sticky trap. He scans the area, only to realize the termite has already scurried to a distant corner. Vice General Explosive Termite looms over his captive, ready to end this. Another termite officer rushes forward, swinging its curved blade downward with a cold sneer. Firehammer can only look up as the scythe comes for his head. A massive strike slams into the ground, shattering the rock. Smoke and dust fill the air as the impact settles. The Vice General mocks the mushrooms, calling them nothing more than bullies. In a nearby patch of glue, Seifeng stares back with a confident smirk. Suddenly, pink sparks erupt as her mycelium starts devouring the glue trap. The Vice General is stunned to see his ultimate snare being eaten alive. Seifeng breaks free, reminding the bug that organic glue is basically a buffet for a fungus. She lunges forward, aiming a glowing pink energy strike. With no time to knock an arrow, she just throws one with pure force. The arrow explodes, blowing the termite's glue bomb right back in his face. The scattered mess forms a sticky trap that catches the Vice General instead. She follows up with a high-speed mycelial lunge. Seifeng closes in, taunting him for being vulnerable to his own skills. A massive blast shakes the cavern floor. The mushroom guard is currently locked in a one-on-one battle with a termite Vice General. Seifeng rallies the other mushrooms, pointing out the enemy's fatal weakness. She warns them that he'll self-destruct if he's allowed to keep throwing bombs. The elemental shrooms power up, preparing for a combined assault. Lightning and fire start raining down on the bug general. A massive pillar of flame erupts, cutting off his escape. An electrified net drops from the ceiling, keeping him pinned. The Vice General realizes he's being forced into a cage of fire and sparks. The intense heat starts to cook his reinforced armor. Smoking and battered, he curses the crafty tactics of the mushroom folk. On this side, the Vice General realizes that the one he just defeated was merely a decoy mushroom of Firehammer. A puffball bomb is primed and ready right under the bug's feet. The Vice General can only watch as the fuse runs out. A massive explosion rips through the tunnel. The impact is so powerful that it sends him flying into the cavern wall. Covered in purple blood and fuming, the termite demands a fair one-on-one melee. Firehammer steps through the smoke, reminding him he's just a simple blacksmith. He swings a massive hammer-like object with incredible power. The Vice General laughs loudly as his opponent finally unleashes a close-quarters strike. But everyone was mistaken. The object Firehammer launched was actually a long, black cannon barrel. The termite general gets a face full of dirt, left wondering what exactly the blacksmith considers close combat. As the smoke clears, a massive metal tube emerges from the shadows. It's the red umbrella shroom cannon, a piece of heavy artillery that definitely wasn't in the budget. Firehammer is at the controls, wondering if a cannon barrel to the dome counts as melee. The bug laughs it off, thinking a clunky weapon like that is an easy dodge. But his legs won't budge. He's stuck right where he stands. Firehammer had already jammed his feet with some sneaky mushrooms beforehand. The blacksmith glows with energy. Being a master crafter means you've always got a hidden item ready. A blinding light builds up at the end of the barrel. The termite finally realizes he's a goner. A massive pillar of fire erupts from the cannon, vaporizing everything in its path. Notification confirmed. General Twisting Termite has been wiped from the map. But the termite army isn't backing down just yet. Seifeng unleashes a barrage of arrows, but the vice-general counters with a flurry of strikes. The sticky projectiles explode, completely blocking Seifeng's arrows. He assumes that only the high-density sticky bombs could have completely blocked her explosive arrows. The termite's armor is already cracked and leaking purple blood, but he's ready to go all out. He counters with a high-speed sticky bomb barrage of his own. Countless spiked bombs fill the air like a lethal rain. Seifeng weaves through the chaos, firing off pink sparks of light. She activates the continuous mycelial lunge skill to dodge the vice-general's frenzied barrage. But the barrage was so dense that she finally took a sticky projectile to the shoulder. The bug laughs triumphantly, thinking he has finally caught Seifeng. The bug yanks on the binding rope, determined to crush her to pieces. Seifeng's body is yanked violently, hurtling toward the cavern wall. The blow hits the ground with enough force to shatter the stone floor. The room is filled with dust as the battle reaches its peak. The vice-general decides to charge forward and finish her off. A cloud of dust billows up due to the vice-general's terrifying speed. The ground cracks and shatters under the weight of this finishing blow. The vice-general laughs loudly, seeing his prey still immobilized by the sticky bomb and only one finishing strike away. But he instantly freezes, realizing that what he has been swinging around this whole time was just Seifeng's clothing. A brilliant pink light flares up as Seifeng prepares her final attack. She pulls back a massive energy bow, glowing with pure power. An armor-piercing arrow finds its mark right in the center of his head. She finishes him off with a meteor-heavy spike, diving straight through his broken shell. Another victory. Vice-General Beak Termite has been taken out. There's nothing left of him but a shattered mess of chitin. Seifeng looks at the remains, thinking one of those limbs might come in handy for later. On this side, the Mushroom Guard is also engaged in an extremely fierce battle with the final Vice-General. The two clash continuously, trading sparks with every blow. The termites are learning that once these mushrooms latch on, they don't let go until the job is done. The Vice-General is cornered, but he isn't going down without a fight. He's fully prepared to lay down his life for his queen. He screams a final challenge, ready to turn the entire tunnel into a grave for everyone present. Realizing that this guy is desperate and planning a reckless move, Seifeng immediately orders the battlefield to disperse. The elemental mushrooms and guards scramble to get out of the impending blast radius as the tension reaches a breaking point. The termite sneers, convinced that the mushrooms are backing off because they're terrified of his power. With the path clear, he prepares to rain down his bombs without a shred of hesitation. But suddenly, he finds himself unable to move. He realizes too late that something has gone horribly wrong. He recognizes the substance pinning him down. It's the sticky glue that belonged to Vice-General Beak Termite. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. If the pheromones are synchronized, it means Beaked Termite has already been taken out. And that can only mean one thing. That female shroom, Seifeng, must have scavenged the glue and turned it against him. From a safe distance, Seifeng watches her plan come to fruition. The termite general is trapped in his own trap. His toxic bomb is primed and can't be deactivated, and he's stuck fast in the glue. A violent green explosion erupts, tearing through the cavern as the Vice-General's own weapon becomes his undoing. System confirmation, Vice-General Explosive Termite has been eliminated. Seifeng walks away, mission accomplished. Deep in the heart of the colony, Yang Jun finds a massive, pulsing metallic pod. This is it, the inner sanctum of the termite queen's nest. The little mushroom looks around the silent chamber, confused. Where's the queen? His question is answered instantly, as a dark, jagged hand rips through the side of the pod. From the wreckage of the cocoon, a terrifying presence emerges. The termite queen, Kara's, her purple eyes glowing with murderous intent. A massive spiral of energy erupts in the center of the lair. Yang Jun is nearly blown away by the sheer pressure of the aura. Rocks shatter and dust fills the air as the shockwave ripples out. Kara stands unmoved in the middle of the destruction. Yang Jun can't believe she actually absorbed her own eggs just to get a power boost. To the queen, her offspring are just sacrifices meant to protect their ruler. She demands to know why these mushrooms are even picking a fight with her clan. The king points out that they're only here because she kidnapped Milan. Kara mocks him, saying none of her soldiers even have eyes to see who they're grabbing. That line definitely didn't sit right with the mushroom leader. Kara decides she's done talking and flares up a murderous red aura. She kicks off the ground and disappears in a blur. Yang Jun barely has time to blink before she's on top of him. She's moving way too fast for him to track her movements. A massive explosion of spikes and debris rips through the cavern. Kara watches from above, waiting for the smoke to clear. She begins telekinetically launching pieces of the shattered ground. The queen effortlessly weaves through the chaos she's created. Yang Jun counters with a /shroom flurry / attack. A barrage of spores rains down on Kara's position. The queen is momentarily blinded by the thick clouds of smoke. He seizes the moment and fires a concentrated orb of pink energy. Kara reacts instantly, drawing her blade to intercept the shot. She deflects the blast with a single, violent motion. The king grips his hammer, charging up for a much heavier hit. A massive beam of pink light slams right into the queen's guard. The force of the impact craters the floor beneath them. Kara admits that for a pathetic-looking mushroom, he's packing some serious power. Yang Jun doesn't let up, triggering his electric shock ability. He uses the energy from his transplanted spores to paralyze the target. Volts of lightning ripple through the queen's armor. The paralysis takes hold in a blinding surge of electricity. Kara hits the floor, cursing the fact that she's been pinned down. The king winds up, ready to deliver a few more hammer strikes while she's open. Suddenly, a shimmering pattern of light ripples across the floor. Yang Jun tries to move, but his body feels like it's stuck in thick mud. Kara has deployed a beak-glass barrier called the viscous cage. Outside the field, Firehammer and Seifeng rush toward the battle. Seifeng is forced to a halt as the glowing wall blocks their path. Firehammer realizes they're looking at a high-level barrier. He immediately summons the mushroom cannon to blast the barrier. Seifeng is worried they can't break through, but they have to try something. A massive explosion rocks the interior of the nest. Seifeng watches helplessly from the other side of the shimmering wall. She hopes that much impact force was enough to at least scratch the boss. But the force of the explosion completely destroyed the cannon, leaving the blacksmith sobbing over his lost treasure. Seifeng realizes the shroom soldiers are useless now. The king is completely on his own. A small, glowing projectile is swatted away like a fly. Inside the barrier, Yang Jun feels like he's trying to swim through a vat of thick glue. The system confirms the viscous cage. Debuff is slowing all his movements by a massive 80%. He senses a presence closing in fast from his blind spot. Every attempt to turn and defend himself feels like it's happening in slow motion. Kara taunts him, laughing as she easily predicts his every sluggish move. She delivers a crushing blow that the king is powerless to dodge. The queen is a red blur of motion, dancing circles around her stuck opponent. Her attack slams into the ground, sending fractures through the stone. She charges her fist with dark energy, ready to deliver a finishing strike. A fiery blast erupts, consuming everything in the immediate area. The queen seems to sniff out the danger. She instantly flips to dodge as a massive blast of fire engulfs the spot where she had just been standing. She brags that her barrier is so powerful it even slows down the flow of magic itself. But as the smoke clears, a new silhouette stands tall. Yang Jun has finally unleashed his humanoid king form. He stares her down, calmly explaining that her perfect barrier has one fatal flaw. The termite queen is caught completely off guard by his sudden change in appearance. Before she can even process the shift, Yang Jun is already closing the distance. With no allies nearby, his lone sovereign passive triggers, skyrocketing his combat stats. He moves with a speed that shouldn't be possible inside the slowing field. Kara's is furious that he didn't even wait for her to finish talking before launching a counterattack. She can't wrap her head around how he's moving even faster than he was before the debuff. Desperate to reclaim control, she activates her Trapjaw twin pillars. Massive mandibles erupt from the earth, threatening to crush anything in their path. Yang Jun doesn't flinch, meeting her head-on with a precise strike. The queen prepares to unleash her power using the pair of pincers she just summoned, pouring all her strength into a single blow. The pincers are unleashed, blasting off with terrifying force. Her air-rending slash tears through the stone, creating a massive shockwave. Yang Jun effortlessly dances through the debris, preparing his own response. He focuses his energy into a single point, igniting his mycelial fire fist. A gargantuan fireball detonates, lighting up the entire cavern. The force of the blast sends Kara's tumbling backward through the air. She struggles to stay on her feet, sensing that the tide of the battle has shifted. As the flames die down, she notices something strange happening to the barrier's aerosol. He's been using his flames to burn channels through the viscous air, creating clear paths to move at full speed. With the debuff cleared, he launches his Flame Shroom Twin Horn Thrust. Kara's is terrified to realize that she's the one being hunted now, despite the rigged arena. Kara's shouts in disbelief as her control slips. Realizing she needs to engage in close combat, she immediately draws her twin blades. She recoils, demanding respect for her status as queen. A chain of small explosions erupts between them. Sparks and debris fill the air within the barrier. The termite mushroom subordinate asks if they should act. The termite mushroom chief insists inaction is their best strategy. The subordinate recalls their narrow escape from the ant prison. The chief cryptically remarks that chaos is a ladder for them. Yang Jun blocks a bone-crushing blow from the termite queen. Kara's realizes his heat has neutralized the slowing aerosol. Suddenly, Yang Jun's body crackles with intense green energy, which surges through the termite queen's weapon and blasts back at her. A surge of electricity blasts Kara's backward. The queen screams as she is overwhelmed by the force. Yang Jun follows through with a devastating upward strike. The impact shatters the stone ceiling above them. Kara's coughs, her armor cracked in bleeding purple light. Enraged, she invokes her ultimate, Suppression Cage. Pillars of blue light converge on Yang Jun's position. He feels the crushing weight of the slowing effect again. The cage fully forms, isolating him in a sphere of light. A system notification warns of a 99% reduction in speed. Kara's gloats, believing she has him completely locked down. Yang Jun realizes she compressed all remaining aerosol around him. Despite the slow, he focuses every ounce of his will. Kara's prepares her giant termite detonation finishing move. A massive termite construct charges toward the trapped hero. The monster glides across the ground at extreme speed and then leaps to latch onto the air cage. Yang Jun knows he must surpass his current speed limits. He watches the detonator close in with focused intensity. The construct begins to overload, sparking with volatile energy. Yang Jun commands his body to move despite the cage. A blinding white explosion consumes the center of the lair. Corrosive green flames erupt from the blast site. Dust and smoke hang heavy in the sudden silence. Kara scans the wreckage, unable to detect any life. Her expression shifts to horror as a silhouette emerges. She cannot comprehend how Yang Jun survived the blast. Yang Jun explains his punch hit just before detonation. He used a fireball to push back the explosion's force. He gathers his remaining strength for one final strike. Kara's charges forward, ready for a final test of strength. Yang Jun unleashes his ultimate technique, the Mushroom Cap Cannon Fist, sending a massive shockwave forward. Kara's counters with her Trapjaw Cyclone Drill, her entire body spinning into a lethal high-speed vortex.